Every heavy heart you carry into the dark is a testament to a war you've been fighting without a shield. When the screen goes black, when the house settles, when the expectations of others finally stop knocking at your door, you are left with the echoes of a day that demanded too much and gave back too little. The exhaustion that isn't just in your muscles, but in your very soul. The feeling that you are running a race with no finish line, carrying a pack that only gets heavier with every mile. We were taught that to stop is to fail. We were told that our value is measured by our output, our busyness, and our scars. We learned to ignore the flickering lights of our own spirit just to keep the machinery of life moving. But there is a silent strength within you, an ancient, steady flame that knows you were meant for more than just surviving. It's a voice that doesn't shout, but waits for the moment you decide that your peace is worth protecting. The Stoics knew that burnout isn't caused by the world outside, but by the civil war inside. They understood that you don't find rest by changing your circumstances, but by changing your mind. That when you stop trying to control the wind and start focusing on your sails, the storm loses its power over you. They believed that sleep isn't just a break for the body, it is a sacred laboratory where the mind can finally put down the tools of worry and pick up the mantle of wisdom. Tonight, we aren't just closing our eyes, we are opening a door. 4 hours to dismantle the shoulds that drain your spirit. 4 hours to realize that the world can spin without your constant worry. 4 hours to practice the art of ataraxia, that deep, unshakable calm that no deadline or disaster can touch. You've given everything to the world today. Now, it's time to give yourself back to you. Take a deep breath and let the air escape slowly. The world is finally quiet. The weight you've been carrying is ready to be set down, and the lessons that follow are not just words. They are the blueprints for a new way of being. We are moving away from the noise of the day and into the stillness of the night, where your mind can finally heal. Think about the last time you saw a notification on your phone or looked at a pile of papers on your desk. Before you even moved a finger, you felt a wave of heaviness in your chest. Your shoulders tightened. Your breath became shallow. You weren't tired from the work yet, because the work hadn't started. You were tired from the thought of the work. This is the hidden trap the Stoics called a preconception, a mental label that seals your fate before you ever take action. When we label a future event as exhausting, we aren't describing reality. We are making a prediction that our body feels forced to fulfill. Your mind creates a vivid image of the struggle, the boredom, or the pressure, and your nervous system reacts as if that struggle is happening right now. You are essentially mourning your energy before you've even spent it. This premature fatigue acts like a leak in a bucket. By the time you actually begin the task, half of your willpower has already drained away into the floorboards of your mind. The Stoics taught that we must guard the entryway of our thoughts. If you let a task enter your mind with the tag "draining" attached to it, you have already lost the battle for your peace. This happens because we stop seeing the task as a simple series of movements, typing keys, moving boxes, or speaking words, and start seeing it as a monster that has the power to take something from us. We view our energy as a finite pile of gold that the world is trying to steal, rather than a flowing river that renews itself through purposeful action. To heal this, we must look at the prolepsis, or the initial strike of the thought. When a task appears on your horizon, notice the split second where your brain tries to give it a name. It might say, "This is going to be a long day," or "I hate doing this." In that moment, You are projecting a shadow over your own path. A Stoic would tell you to stop the shadow. You don't have to call the task joyful, but you must stop calling it draining. You must see it as neutral. It is simply a thing that is happening, like rain falling or a clock ticking. Burnout is often built on these thousands of tiny, negative labels we apply to our hours. When you tell yourself a meeting is soul-sucking, you are literally instructing your soul to withdraw. You are creating an internal conflict where one part of you is trying to move forward while the other part is bracing for impact. This bracing is what actually causes the tiredness. It is the friction of a mind that is saying no to the present moment. If you could simply say yes to the task, even if the task is difficult, the friction would vanish. As you lie here, realize that your mind has the power to unlabel your life. You can decide that no task has the inherent power to drain you. Energy is often a reflection of interest and perspective. Think of how you can stay awake for hours doing something you love, yet feel ready for a nap after 5 minutes of something you've labeled as work. The physical requirement is the same, but the mental label is different. By removing the draining tag, you stop the leak. You allow yourself to move through the day with a sense of lightness, because you are no longer carrying the heavy story of how hard everything is going to be. This shift isn't about lying to yourself, it's about being more honest. The truth is, you don't know how you will feel an hour from now. You don't know if the task will be easier than you think. By staying in the now and refusing to pre-label the later, you preserve your spirit. You keep your inner citadel intact. You become like a mountain that doesn't care if the wind blowing against it is cold or warm. The mountain simply stands. As you move deeper into this rest, let these labels melt away. Every hard thing, every tiring conversation, and every stressful obligation is being stripped of its name. They are returning to their original form, simple, quiet, and powerless to disturb your core. You are learning to meet the world without a pre-written script of suffering. This is the first step of the deep heal, stopping the war before it even begins. As the labels melt away and the tasks of your life return to their quiet, neutral state, a sudden space opens up within you. You are no longer bracing for the draining day ahead, but as you settle into this newfound stillness, you might notice a different kind of tension, a subtle, invisible pulling. It feels as though your mind is a rubber band stretched thin, reaching across time and space to grab onto things that haven't happened yet. Consider the sensation of being physically in one place while your spirit is scattered across a dozen different outcomes. You are lying in your bed, safe and still, yet your concern is miles away, hovering over a client's potential reaction, a boss's unread email, or a future conversation that hasn't even been spoken into existence. This is the state of cognitive hyperextension. It is the act of throwing your mental energy outside of your own body and anchoring it to things you cannot touch or change. When you do this, you create a psychic fracture. You are no longer whole. You are a house divided, with your awareness split between the only place you actually exist, the present, and 1,000 external points that exist only in your anxiety. The Stoics looked at this fragmentation as a form of self-inflicted violence. They believed that our ruling faculty, the core of our being, is designed to be a solid, singular point of power. When you extend your concern to how a project will be received, or whether people will approve of your choices, you are essentially trying to live inside other people's minds. You are attempting to manage the wind while your own ship sits neglected. This overextension is why you feel spread thin. It isn't because you have too much to do. It is because you have placed your sense of well-being in too many locations. You have left pieces of your peace in the hands of strangers, in the fluctuations of the market, and in the unpredictable whims of fate. To heal this burnout, you must begin the process of mental retraction. Think of it as pulling back your scouts from a lost war. Every time you worry about an outcome, the if and the then, you are sending your energy into a void where it has no power. External outcomes are, by definition, outside of your absolute control. You can influence them, yes, but you cannot command them. When you attach your happiness to an outcome, you become a hostage to fortune. If the outcome is good, you feel a temporary relief. If it is bad, you shatter. But the Stoic master knows that the real exhaustion comes from the attachment itself, not the result. The constant reaching, the endless checking of the future, creates a high-frequency vibration in the soul that prevents deep rest. As you breathe now, feel those invisible threads of concern beginning to snap. You are calling your spirit back into your chest. You are realizing that your only true territory is your own intent and your own character. The world can take your reputation, it can take your results, and it can take your efforts, but it can never take the quality of your will unless you extend it to them. By retracting your concern, you become a closed system. You become a fortress. This doesn't mean you stop caring about doing good work. It means you stop caring about whether the world calls it good. You focus entirely on the craftsmanship of the moment, leaving the applause or the silence to the universe. This psychic fracturing often hides under the mask of responsibility. We tell ourselves that we must worry about the outcome because we care. But worry is not care. Worry is just friction. True responsibility is staying centered and whole so that you can meet whatever outcome arrives with a clear mind. When you are hyperextended, you meet the future already broken. You arrive at the event with only a fraction of your strength because the rest of you was spent rehearsing the worry. By staying inside yourself, you accumulate power. You become a dense, unshakable mass of presence. The relief that comes from this realization is profound. It is the end of the scattered life. You no longer need to keep track of 100 different possibilities. You only need to keep track of one thing. Are you being honorable and calm right now? If the answer is yes, you are successful, regardless of what the external world decides. This is the cure for the fragmented soul that characterizes modern burnout. It is a return to the center. It is the understanding that you are not a leaf blown by the wind of external events, but the air itself, vast, contained, and undisturbed by what passes through it. As you fall deeper into this sleep, let your mind become a single glowing point of light. No reaching, no grasping, no stretching toward tomorrow. You are here. You are whole. The world's opinions and the results of your labor are far-off noises that cannot cross the boundary of your rest. You are gathering your pieces back together, becoming one, and in that oneness you find the strength that the world could never give you and can never take away. As your spirit retracts from the distant outcomes of tomorrow, you begin to feel the solid edges of your own being again. You are no longer scattered across the map of the future. You are back within the walls of your own soul. But as you settle into this stillness, you might notice a lingering heat, a residual noise that doesn't belong to you. It is the frustration of a coworker, the anxiety of a partner, or the collective frantic energy of the world you navigated today. This is the weight of the sympatheia debt, a hidden tax paid by those who forget where their soul ends and the world begins. The Stoics spoke of sympatheia, the idea that everything in the cosmos is interconnected, like the limbs of a single body. While this connection is beautiful, it carries a grave danger for the weary. When you are burned out, your emotional skin becomes thin. You stop witnessing the chaos of others and start absorbing it. You take on the debt of their dysregulation. If a friend is drowning in drama, you don't just throw them a rope. You jump into the dark water with them, thinking that sharing their shivers will somehow make them warm. But all you've done is double the number of people who are freezing. This debt is the most silent thief of energy. You may feel exhausted after a simple lunch with a stressed friend or a quick scroll through the news, not because of what you did, but because of what you allowed to stick to you. In Stoicism, your internal state is your sacred responsibility, your prohairesis. When you allow someone else's anger or panic to become your own, you are essentially letting a stranger walk into your home and rearrange the furniture. You are paying a debt you didn't sign for. You are using your precious, limited Stoic reserve, the energy meant for your own virtue and healing, to process emotions that were never yours to carry. True Stoic compassion is not feeling with someone to the point of self-destruction. It is acting for them from a place of unshakable clarity. Think of a doctor. If a doctor faints at the sight of every patient's blood, they are useless to the person they want to help. To be of service, the doctor must remain other. They must see the wound without becoming the wound. Burnout happens when we lose this distinction. We think that being empathetic means we must suffer because others are suffering. But the Stoics would argue that adding your misery to the world's pile doesn't decrease the world's pain. It only increases it. As you rest tonight, visualize your emotional boundaries as a clear, cooling filter. You can recognize the struggles of the people around you without letting that struggle enter your bloodstream. You are learning to observe the storms of others from the safety of the shore. This isn't coldness. It is the highest form of love. By refusing to take on the sympatheia debt, you preserve your light so that you can actually see to help others when they are in the dark. You are realizing that you have a finite amount of caring power each day. When you spend it on things that are not your business, you have nothing left for your own life. This debt often manifests as a feeling of guilt when you aren't as stressed as the people around you. You feel a pressure to match their frequency, to join in the complaining, or to carry their worries home with you like a heavy souvenir. But you must realize that their chaos is a reflection of their internal world, not a requirement for yours. You can be a pillar of peace in a house of fire. By maintaining your own frequency, you actually provide a grounding force for others. Your calmness becomes a gift you give them, a reminder that peace is possible even when things are falling apart. Tonight, you are declaring a mental bankruptcy on all debts that aren't yours. You are letting go of the need to fix emotions that belong to other people. You are handing back the baggage you picked up at the office, the tension you absorbed from the subway, and the heaviness you felt from the digital world. You are scrubbing your spirit clean of the static of others. As this noise fades, you'll find that your own energy, your true core self, is much more vibrant than you realized. It was just buried under the rubble of a world that doesn't know how to be still. As the residual noise of other people's lives fades into the background, you might expect total silence to follow. Yet, as you lie there, a different sound emerges, not from the world, but from a hidden chamber of your own mind. It is a persistent, rhythmic tapping, like a ghost pacing in the attic. This is the weight of phantom duties. These are the invisible obligations the silent shoulds, and the unwritten rules you've been following without ever consciously agreeing to them. They don't live in your calendar. They live in your nervous system, keeping you in a state of low-level alarm even when the lights are off and the door is locked. Consider the tension in your jaw or the way your mind checks in on tasks that aren't even due. You feel a vague sense of guilt for not being further ahead, for not being more optimized, or for simply wanting to exist without a purpose for an hour. This isn't laziness. It's the friction of a mind haunted by ghosts. These ghosts are the voices of parents, teachers, society, and social media, all whispering that you should be doing more, being more, or appearing more successful. The Stoics called these false impressions. They are scripts we've inherited that convince us we are in debt to a life we never chose. To a Stoic, the only true duty is to your own character and the present moment. Everything else is a preferred indifferent, something that might be nice to have, but isn't worth the sacrifice of your soul's tranquility. Burnout is the result of trying to satisfy 1,000 phantom duties at once. You feel a duty to be on for your emails, a duty to stay relevant in your field, a duty to maintain a certain lifestyle, and even a duty to relax in a way that looks productive. When you live by these phantoms, you are a slave to a master that doesn't exist. You are running a race where the finish line is moved every time you get close. Dismantling these duties requires a radical act of Stoic honesty. You must look at every should and ask, whose voice is this? If you didn't have to explain your life to anyone, would this task still feel urgent? Most of the things that keep you awake at night are not matters of life and death. They are matters of image and expectation. By identifying these as phantoms, you strip them of their power. You realize that the sky will not fall if you aren't the most productive person in the room. You realize that your value as a human being is not a sliding scale based on your to-do list. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine you are holding a master list of all these obligations. One by one, you are crossing them out. I should have done more today. Cross it out. I should be more successful by now. Cross it out. I should be worried about tomorrow. Cross it out. These are not your duties. Your only duty right now is to be the person who rests well so they can meet the world with virtue tomorrow. Everything else is a ghost. By refusing to feed these phantoms with your attention, they begin to starve. They become translucent. Then they vanish, leaving you alone with the only thing that matters, the steady, quiet rhythm of your own breath. This process is like clearing a garden of weeds that have grown over the path. You've been tripping over these shoulds for years, wondering why the journey feels so difficult. The difficulty wasn't the path, it was the clutter. When you clear away the phantom duties, you find that life is actually quite simple. There is the work you choose to do, and there is the rest you choose to take. There is no hidden third category of things you should be doing while you sleep. You are finally giving yourself permission to be finished with the day. The day is over. The account is closed. Tonight, let the silence be absolute. No ghosts are allowed in this sanctuary. You are reclaiming your REM cycle from the thieves of optimization and comparison. You are realizing that a life lived according to your own inner truth is far lighter than a life lived according to the world's shoulds. As the weight of these invisible tasks lifts, your body can finally sink into the mattress with total trust. You are no longer a worker on a 24-hour shift. You are a human being returning to the source of your strength. As the ghosts of should finally leave the attic of your mind, a new silence takes hold. But for many, this silence feels wrong. It feels dangerous. You might feel a twitch in your spirit, a subtle urge to check the perimeter of your life one more time. It's the feeling that if you truly let go, if you truly stop watching the dials and pulling the levers, everything you've built will crumble. This is the grip of the illusion of indispensability. It is the ego's most clever trap, whispering that you are the sole pillar holding up the sky and that your exhaustion is the price the world pays for its stability. We carry ourselves with a hidden, heavy pride, believing that our constant labor is the only thing standing between order and chaos. We think the company will fail, the family will fall apart, or the project will vanish if we aren't hovering over it with our worry. But this importance we've assigned ourselves is actually a cage. It is a high-speed treadmill that never stops because we are afraid to find out what happens when we step off. The Stoics had a radical, cold, yet deeply healing medicine for this. Memento mori, the remembrance of death. Now, don't let that word death startle you. In the Stoic tradition, memento mori isn't about gloom, it's about perspective. It is the ultimate reality check. Imagine looking down at the earth from 1,000 years in the future. The urgent crisis you faced on Tuesday is gone. The person you were so desperate to impress is gone. The very building you work in has returned to dust. When you realize that you are a temporary guest in a world that has been spinning for billions of years before you arrived and will spin for billions more after you leave, the weight of your indispensability simply evaporates. The world is far more resilient than your ego wants you to believe. Think of the greatest leaders, the most essential workers, and the most brilliant minds of the last century. They are gone, yet the sun still rises, the harvest still comes. The world adjusted and kept moving. Realizing that you are not indispensable is not a demotion. It is the greatest promotion you will ever receive. It is your get out of jail free card. If the world can survive your eventual death, it can certainly survive you taking a deep, uninterrupted 4-hour rest tonight. Burnout is often the result of a God complex we don't even know we have. We think we are responsible for the rotation of the earth, so we never let ourselves sleep deeply. But as you lie here, I want you to practice the relinquishment. Mentally, hand over the keys to the universe. Acknowledge that you are a small, beautiful part of a vast whole, not the engine that runs it. The people you love will find their way. The work will find its level. The emergencies will wait or resolve themselves. By accepting your own unimportance in the grand cosmic scale, you finally earn the right to be human. You earn the right to be tired. This shift in perspective is like taking off a suit of armor you've been wearing for 20 years. You feel lighter, almost buoyant. You realize that your value isn't tied to how much you save the day, but to how well you live your own small, precious life. When you stop trying to be the hero of every story, you can finally become the master of your own peace. The pressure to be essential is replaced by the freedom to be present. You are no longer a frantic cog in a machine. You are a conscious observer of a beautiful, self-sustaining world. Tonight, let memento mori be your lullaby. Let it remind you that this moment, this breath, is all you truly have. The world is in good hands, the hands of nature, of time, and of others. You are off duty. You are allowed to be nothing for a while. As you sink into the mattress, feel the earth beneath you, supporting you without any effort on your part. It doesn't need your help to stay in orbit. It doesn't need your worry to stay beautiful. You are free to let go because the world is already holding itself together.
With the heavy crown of indispensability finally removed, your mind is now light enough to travel.
As the world continues to spin without your permission, you might notice that the tightness in your chest was never really about the work itself. It was about the ticking. Most of us live our lives as prisoners of Chronos. This is the relentless, linear, quantitative time, the seconds, minutes, and hours that march forward like a drumbeat in a forced march. Chronos is the god of the deadline, the alarm clock, and the to-do list. It is a cold, indifferent ruler that tells you that you are running out of life with every tick of the clock. When you live in Chronos, you are always chasing a phantom, always behind, and always busy. This is the primary engine of burnout, the feeling that you are being crushed by a sequence of numbers. The Stoics, however, invited us to step into a different dimension of time, Kairos. This is qualitative time. It is not how much time, but the right time. It is the opportune moment. It is the season of things. Kairos is the time of the soul. In Kairos, an hour spent in deep, healing reflection is worth more than a week of frantic, shallow labor. While Chronos demands that you produce at a constant rate, Kairos understands that life has a rhythm, a time to plant, a time to harvest, and most importantly, a time to lie dormant and let the soil of your mind renew itself. Burnout is what happens when you try to force the harvest every single hour of the day. You treat yourself like a factory that must run 24/7, ignoring the natural law that everything in the universe requires a period of non-action. If you look at the stars, the seasons, or even the animals, nothing is in a state of constant output. There is a time for the tide to go out and a time for it to come in. By shifting your perspective from Chronos to Kairos, you stop asking, "What time is it?" and start asking, "What is this time for?" Tonight, this time is not for preparing for tomorrow or recovering from today. This time is for the sacred act of being. Living in Chronos creates a time famine where you feel you never have enough. But Kairos offers time abundance. When you are fully present in the moment, time seems to expand. Think of a moment when you were truly happy or deeply focused. The clock didn't matter. You were in the flow. The Stoic practice of Kairos is about returning to that flow. It is about realizing that your worth is not calculated by how many minutes you spent being productive, but by the quality of your presence in the now. As you lie here, you are stepping off the treadmill of the clock. You are entering a space where time doesn't run out. It simply is. As you drift towards sleep, give yourself the gift of timelessness. Tell yourself that for the next 4 hours, the clock has no authority over you. You are not using this time to get better. You are simply existing within it. The pressure to hurry up and relax or sleep fast is a symptom of Chronos trying to colonize your rest. Reject it. Embrace the slow, deep rhythm of your breath, which doesn't care about minutes or seconds. It only cares about the cycle of the inhale and the exhale, the perfect embodiment of Kairos. By shifting to this opportune time, you allow your nervous system to reset. You are no longer a servant to the calendar. You are a human being moving in harmony with the natural pace of life. You'll find that when you wake up, you won't feel behind. You will feel on time, aligned with your purpose, and ready to meet the day, not because the clock says so, but because your spirit is ready. You have traded the anxiety of the tick-tock for the peace of the here now. As the ticking of the clock fades into a distant, meaningless hum, you might expect the silence to be absolute. But in that stillness, a sharp, cold voice often speaks up. It's the one that asks why you aren't sleeping yet, or reminds you of the person you forgot to thank, or judges the way you handled a conversation 3 years ago. This isn't your conscience. It is the internalized overseer. It is a mental construct, an inner tyrant that has taken the whip from the hands of the world and started using it on yourself. It is the part of you that has been trained to believe that your body is a tool to be used rather than a home to be lived in. We live in a culture that rewards the hustle, and over time we stop needing a boss to tell us to work harder because we've built a miniature version of that boss inside our own heads. This tyrant doesn't value your peace, it only values your utility. It views rest as a bug in the system rather than a feature of life. Even now, as you try to heal, the overseer might be watching you, grading your performance in this meditation. It makes you feel like you are failing at relaxing if your mind wanders. This constant surveillance is the deepest root of burnout. You aren't just tired from the work you do. You are exhausted from being watched by your own judgmental eye every second of the day. The Stoics had a way to deal with this internal bully. They practiced a form of radical self-observation called proheresis, where they separated their ruling faculty from their impressions. The overseer is just an impression, a collection of borrowed fears and societal pressures. It is not you. You are the observer who hears the voice. By recognizing this, you can strip the tyrant of its power. When the voice says, "You should be doing more," you can respond with the cold, calm logic of Marcus Aurelius. My nature requires rest, and I am following my nature. You are not a rebel. You are a citizen of the universe returning to its laws. To heal, you must fire the overseer. You have to realize that you don't need a supervisor to be a good person. The tyrant tells you that without the whip, you would be nothing, that you would fall behind and lose everything. But this is a lie. Virtue, the Stoic goal of living with excellence, doesn't come from fear. It comes from clarity. You don't do your best work because you are afraid of failing. You do it because it is the right thing to do. When you remove the overseer, you don't become lazy, you become free. You start to move from a place of inspiration rather than a place of threat. As you breathe, imagine this inner tyrant packing its bags and leaving. See it for what it is, a scared, small part of you that thought it was protecting you by being mean to you. Thank it for trying to keep you safe, but tell it that its services are no longer required. You are taking back the throne of your own mind. You are giving yourself the permission that you've been waiting for someone else to give you. You are allowed to be unproductive. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to simply exist without having to earn your place on this planet through sweat and stress. The relief of this firing is like a physical weight leaving your chest. Your muscles can finally go soft because there is no one left to perform for. You are in a room with no judges. You are the king or queen of a quiet kingdom, and your first decree is absolute peace. The overseer's ledger is burned. The shoulds are gone. There is only the soft rise and fall of your chest, the darkness of your eyelids, and the profound healing truth that you are enough exactly as you are in this very moment of doing absolutely nothing. As the inner tyrant exits the room, taking his whip and his ledgers with him, you might feel a sudden phantom itch in your fingertips. Even in the dark, your mind habits try to reach for that small, glowing rectangle on your nightstand. We have become a generation that treats the infinite scroll as a form of relaxation, but the Stoics would see it as a voluntary surrender of your most sacred property. This is the hidden cost of our digital lives on the faculty of prohairesis, your power of choice, your fundamental will. Every flick of your thumb is a tiny transaction where you trade a piece of your autonomy for a hit of novelty. The infinite scroll is designed by thousands of engineers to bypass your conscious mind and speak directly to your ancient, dopamine-seeking brain. In Stoic terms, it is a constant barrage of untested impressions. When you scroll, you aren't choosing what to see. You are letting an algorithm decide which emotions you will feel next: outrage, envy, laughter, or inadequacy. This creates a state of will fatigue. Your prohairesis is like a muscle, and when you subject it to 1,000 micro-decisions a minute, it becomes limp and exhausted. This is why you can spend an hour on your phone and feel more drained than if you had been working. You haven't rested. You've just been bombarded by a digital storm. To practice digital stoicism is to realize that your attention is the only thing you truly own. If someone tried to steal your clothes or your money, you would fight back. Yet we give away our focus to strangers and corporations for free every single day. Burnout isn't just about having too much to do, it's about having a leaky mind. When your attention is fragmented by notifications and endless streams of data, you lose the ability to sit with yourself. You lose the inner citadel because the gates are always open, letting in every passing opinion and every piece of trivial news. This constant input keeps your nervous system in a state of high alert, making deep, restorative sleep almost impossible. Healing your prohairesis requires you to close the gates. You must treat your attention with the same frugality a miser treats his gold. Tonight, as you drift off, recognize that the digital world is a preferred indifferent at best and a toxic distraction at worst. It has no power to improve your character or heal your soul. By putting the phone away, you are staging a revolution. You are telling the world that your mind is not for sale. You are reclaiming the silence that is necessary for your spirit to knit itself back together. This isn't about being anti-technology. It's about being pro-human. When you stop the infinite scroll, you find that the world doesn't end. The itch to check for updates eventually fades, replaced by a much deeper, more satisfying connection to the present moment. You begin to feel the thickness of time again. You are no longer skimming the surface of life like a stone. You are sinking into it like a jewel. The relief of not having to have an opinion on everything, of not having to see everything, and of not having to be connected is the ultimate digital medicine. As you fall deeper into this sleep, feel your will becoming strong and centered once more. You are no longer a consumer. You are a creator of your own internal atmosphere. The static of the internet is being replaced by the steady white noise of your own existence. Your mind is returning to its natural state, quiet, focused, and free. You have survived the digital storm, and now, in the stillness of the night, you are finally home. As the digital world fades and the silence of your room deepens, you might become aware of a lingering heaviness in your body, a specific kind of tightness that a soft mattress can't seem to reach. It's a knot in the pit of your stomach, a rigidity in your neck, or a clenching of the jaw that feels almost permanent. This isn't just physical fatigue, it is the weight of unspoken no's. It is the biological record of every time you wanted to say no, but instead forced your lips to say yes. Every time you suppressed a boundary to keep the peace or please a crowd, your mind didn't just let that energy go, it archived it in your muscles. The Stoics taught that the body is a mirror of the soul's choices. Epictetus often spoke about the importance of our assent, the power to say yes or no to the impressions that hit us. When we fail to use this power in our external lives, we create an internal kink in our character. Burnout is often the result of this dishonest labor. You aren't just exhausted by the work, you are exhausted by the lie of the work. You are performing tasks you resent, for people you don't respect, under terms you never agreed to. This internal conflict acts like a low-voltage electrical current running through your nerves 24/7, preventing your body from ever truly entering a state of restoration. Think of every unspoken no as a brick you've added to a backpack you wear even while you sleep. When you agreed to that extra project you didn't have time for, you added a brick. When you let someone speak to you disrespectfully and stayed silent to avoid drama, you added a brick. We tell ourselves that being nice or flexible is a virtue, but the Stoics would call it kakia, a vice of weakness. True virtue requires the courage to be honest about your limits. By suppressing your boundaries, you aren't being kind. You are being a martyr to your own fear of rejection. This martyrdom is what is currently sitting on your chest, making your breath shallow and your rest incomplete. To heal this, you must begin the process of somatic auditing. As you lie here, scan your body and look for the no's you've hidden. That tightness in your throat. That's the boundary you didn't speak. That ache in your lower back. That's the burden of responsibility you should have delegated. The Stoic way to release this is through amor fati, not just for what has happened, but for the truth of who you are. You must accept that you have limits and that those limits are not a failure. They are the edges of your humanity. By acknowledging these suppressed boundaries, you are giving your body permission to finally let go of the bracing it has been doing for years. Imagine that with every exhale, you are speaking those no's into the darkness. You aren't being aggressive, you are being clear. You are letting the bricks fall out of the pack. You are realizing that saying no to the world is often the only way to say yes to your own soul. The sky didn't fall when you set those boundaries in your mind, and it won't fall when you set them in the world tomorrow. By reclaiming your right to choose, you are repairing the fracture in your prohairesis. You are becoming a whole person again, rather than a fragmented set of responses to other people's demands. Feel the muscles in your face soften. Let your tongue drop from the roof of your mouth. Release the grip in your hands. There is nothing you have to agree to right now. There is no one to please in this room. You are answerable only to the truth of this moment, and the truth is that you are tired and you deserve to be still. The weight is lifting because you are no longer trying to carry the version of yourself that everyone else wants. You are returning to your natural weight, the weight of a person who knows their own worth and isn't afraid to protect it. As the tension from those unspoken boundaries begins to drain into the sheets, a cold, quiet realization might start to settle in. We often tell ourselves that our burnout is a badge of honor, a proof of our dedication, our hustle, and our selfless commitment to the grind. We use our exhaustion to tell a story to the world about how virtuous we are. But as the night grows deeper, we must face the Stoic mirror and ask a more uncomfortable question. Is this hard work actually a virtue, or is it a hiding place? This is the trap of false virtue signaling, where we use the noise of busyness to drown out the terrifying silence of our own inner lives. The The Stoics were obsessed with honesty, not just with others, but the brutal, radical honesty with the self. Seneca warned that many people flee from themselves using travel, wine, or endless business to avoid the discomfort of their own company. In our modern age, work has become the ultimate socially acceptable addiction. We keep our calendars packed and our stress levels high because as long as we are fighting fires at the office, we don't have to face the cold embers of our own relationships, our fading passions, or the existential questions we've been avoiding. We signal to the world that we are driven, but internally we are actually driven away from our own souls. Think of the relief you feel when a new emergency arises. In that moment, you don't have to think about who you are or what your life means. You just have to react. This is what the Stoics called unconscious living. We use the external chaos as a shield against internal reflection. Burnout, in this sense, is often the result of a soul that has been ignored for too long, finally screaming to get your attention. You have been using productivity as a drug to numb the pain of a life that feels out of alignment. You've been signaling virtue to others while committing a vice against your own nature. Admitting this isn't a defeat, it is a liberation. When you stop using work as an escape, the work itself loses its heavy quality. It stops being a life or death struggle and returns to being a simple set of tasks. You realize that you don't need to be exhausted to be valuable. The Stoic goal is eudaimonia, a flourishing life, and you cannot flourish if you are constantly running away from yourself. By letting go of the need to appear virtuous through suffering, you allow yourself to actually be virtuous through balance. You stop the performance of burnout and start the practice of presence. As you drift toward the edge of sleep, strip away the title of hard worker. Lay down the identity of the overachiever. In the dark, these titles mean nothing. You are simply a human being, breathing and existing. If there are parts of your life that are broken, more work is not the tool that will fix them. Only stillness can do that. Only the courage to sit with the silence without reaching for a task can heal the fracture in your spirit. You are finally giving yourself permission to stop running. You are safe enough to look at your own life without the distraction of a deadline. The inner citadel is not built through frantic activity. It is built through the quiet observation of your own thoughts. Tonight, you are not a worker. You are a philosopher. You are choosing the virtue of self-knowledge over the false signaling of self-sacrifice. As you embrace this truth, the frantic energy of the day finally collapses. You aren't doing anything anymore. You are simply being. And in that being, you find a strength that no amount of overtime could ever provide. You are coming back to the center, where the light is steady and the soul is finally at rest. As you shed the masks of the hard worker and the selfless martyr, the air around you seems to grow thinner and cooler. You are getting closer to the source of your own stillness. But there is one final gate to pass through before the deep, healing sleep can truly take hold. Even in the silence, the events of the day can still feel like grit in your eyes, a comment that stung, a mistake that lingers, a moment of weakness that plays on a loop. To the Stoic, these are not just memories. They are toxins that, if left unexamined, will ferment in your subconscious, turning into the anxiety of tomorrow. Seneca, the great Stoic teacher, had a remedy for this: the nightly audit. He viewed this not as a chore, but as an exorcism, a way to flush the day out of your system so you can die to the day and be reborn in the morning. Seneca would wait until his wife had fallen asleep and the house was silent. He would then summon the day before his judgment seat. He didn't do this to punish himself, but to achieve clinical clarity. He would ask, "What bad habit did I shake today? What part of me is better? What could I have done differently?" When you do this, you are taking the power away from the day. Burnout is often the result of unprocessed life. We pile day upon day of stress, never stopping to filter the debris. By the end of the year, we are buried under a mountain of ghosts. The nightly audit is the shovel that clears the path. It allows you to look at your failures not as moral stains, but as data points. Imagine your mind as a vessel of water. Throughout the day, people have thrown dirt into it: criticism, rush, fear, and ego. If you go to sleep now, the water stays murky. But by performing the review, you are holding the vessel still, allowing the silt to settle to the bottom. You are looking at that moment you lost your temper and saying, "I see you. You were a reaction to fear. Next time, I will choose a different response." By naming the demon, you take away its horns. You realize that a bad moment doesn't make a bad day, and a bad day doesn't make a bad life. You are separating yourself from your experience. This is the exorcism, the realization that you are the one watching the day, not the one being consumed by it. The beauty of Seneca's method is the pardon. After he reviewed his faults, he would conclude by saying, "I forgive myself." This isn't a soft, modern indulgence. It is a tactical necessity. If you carry guilt into your sleep, your nervous system remains on. Your brain stays in a state of high beta waves, trying to solve a problem that is already in the past. To the Stoic, the past is indifferent. It is outside of your control. To worry about it is as logical as worrying about the weather in another century. By auditing the day and then closing the books, you are signaling to your brain that the work is finished. You are giving yourself the ultimate gift, a clean slate. As you lie here, let the day's events march past your mind one last time. Don't grab onto them. Don't argue with them. Just see them. The traffic jam, the cold coffee, the sharp email, the moment of pride. Look at them, learn the one small lesson they have to offer, and then say to each one, "You are now in the past. You have no power here." Feel the toxins of the day being flushed out of your pores. Your mind is becoming like a clear mountain stream, cold and pure. You are not the person who was stressed at 2 p.m. You are the person who is wise at midnight. The relief of the closed book is the final key to the inner citadel. You aren't taking the day to bed with you. You aren't inviting your boss or your bank account into your dreams. You are entering the realm of sleep as a free man or woman. The audit is complete. The debts are settled. The exorcism is over. You are now standing at the edge of a deep, dark and beautiful ocean of rest, with nothing left to carry. You are ready to sink, not because you are heavy, but because you are finally at peace with the water. As the day's ledger is finally closed and the toxins have been flushed from your spirit, you reach the shoreline of the subconscious. This is the gray zone, the hypnagogic state where the logic of the day begins to fray and the dream world starts to whisper. For most, this transition is a place of vulnerability, where the mind, sensing a loss of control, throws up one last flare of anxiety. But for you, this is the final training ground for ataraxia, the deep, unshakable tranquility that the Stoics prized above all else. This is the art of hypnagogic detachment, the practice of remaining a calm observer even as your ego begins to dissolve into the dark. In this half-awake state, Your brain shifts into theta waves, a frequency where your subconscious is highly suggestible. If you enter this state while still clutching your identity, your name, your problems, your to-do list, you carry that tension into your dreams. But the Stoic master uses this window to practice the great release. You begin to watch your thoughts as if they were clouds passing over a mountain. You notice a stray worry about money or a flash of a conversation, but you don't hook into it. You simply label it, an impression and nothing more. You are practicing the ultimate detachment, being present for the disappearance of your own self. Think of yourself as a sailor who has finally reached the harbor. You don't need to steer the ship anymore. The tide is pulling you in. Ataraxia in this state is the feeling of total trust in the universe. You are letting go of the I that has to solve things. You are realizing that the you who was burned out today is just a temporary mask, and as you drift, that mask is being taken off. The Stoics believed that the soul is part of the Logos, the divine reason of the universe. In this state between worlds, you are simply returning to the source. You are moving from the striving of the day to the being of the night. As your limbs grow heavy and the bed seems to pull you deeper, embrace the dissolve. If a fearful thought arises, meet it with a mental shrug. Ask yourself, who is it that is afraid? You will find that the deeper you go, the harder it is to find a solid you to be stressed. You are becoming the darkness. You are becoming the silence. This is the cure for burnout because it breaks the cycle of self-obsession that fuels our exhaustion. We are tired because we are tired of being ourselves. Hypnagogic detachment allows you to take a vacation from your own identity. As you hover here, in the softest part of the night, feel the boundary between your skin and the air begin to blur. You are no longer a person with a job or a history. You are just a point of awareness in a vast, peaceful sea. The tranquility of ataraxia isn't something you get. It's what's left when you stop trying to be someone. You are floating on the surface of sleep, and the water is perfectly still. There is no effort. There is no direction. There is only the slow, rhythmic pulse of the cosmos. As you float in that soft space between worlds, where the you of the daytime begins to fade, your brain is doing something remarkable. It is sorting through the fragments of the day, deciding what to store as a lesson and what to treat as a threat. For the burned-out mind, this sorting process is broken. Your subconscious has accidentally labeled a work email, a missed deadline, or a difficult conversation as a predator. A life or death emergency that requires your heart to race and your muscles to tingle with adrenaline. Tonight, we are going to fix the filing system. We are going to teach your subconscious the Stoic category of the indifferent. The Stoics divided the world into three categories: good, bad, and indifferent. Good was your own virtue, your kindness, your courage, and your choices. Bad was your own vice, your cruelty, your cowardice, and your lies. Everything else, your bank account, your reputation, your job, and yes, your inbox, was indifferent. They further refined this by calling things like health and success preferred indifference. It's better to have them than not, but they do not define your soul. They are like the weather. You'd prefer a sunny day, but your character remains the same even if it rains. Burnout is the result of categorical error. You have promoted indifference to the level of supreme goods. When you treat a project's success as a matter of life or death, your brain reacts as if you are being hunted by a tiger. It releases cortisol and stays on high alert even when you are trying to sleep. But as you lie here, you are retraining your deep mind to see the truth. That email is just light on a screen. That deadline is just a date on a calendar. These things are indifference. They are the stuff of life, the material we play with, but they are not life itself. Imagine your subconscious as a giant warehouse with two doors, one marked essential and one marked external. Throughout your life, you've been shoving everything into the essential room until it's bursting at the seams. Tonight, we are opening that door and moving the boxes. We are taking the opinions of your boss, the urgent requests, and the fear of failure, and we are moving them into the external room. These things have no power to touch your prohairesis, your inner will. They are indifference. They can be handled tomorrow with calm hands because they are no longer seen as threats to your survival. By labeling work as a preferred indifferent, you aren't saying you won't do a good job. In fact, you'll do a better job because you aren't paralyzed by fear. You are simply telling your nervous system, "Stand down. This is not a lion, it is just a task." As you drift deeper, feel the threat level of your life dropping to zero. You are realizing that if your career vanished tomorrow, the good within you, your ability to be wise, temperate, and brave, would remain untouched. You are anchored in the only thing that cannot be taken from you. This realization is the ultimate cooling agent for the soul. The frantic must and have to of the day are replaced by a quiet, "it would be nice." You are no longer a hostage to your own success. You are a free agent, choosing to engage with the world, but never letting it own your peace. Every urgent notification is being recategorized as a preferred indifferent. It can wait. It is external. It is not you. Feel the vastness of the space this creates in your mind, a space where you can finally, truly put the world down and rest. As your brain relabels the emergencies of your life as mere indifference, the air in the room seems to grow stiller, and your body feels as though it is sinking into a deep, supportive pool of shadow. But even now, as the labels change, the feeling of the day might still occupy too much space in your mind. To finish the work of cooling the spirit, we must shift our perspective. Most of us live our lives from the eyes out, trapped inside our own skulls, where every problem looks like a giant wall standing right in front of us. But the Stoics practiced a mental shift called the view from above. Tonight, we are going to use a micro version of this to physically shrink the emotional mass of your exhaustion. Imagine for a moment that your awareness is a small, quiet bird that gently lifts off from your forehead. You aren't leaving your body. You are simply gaining a new vantage point. Rise up just a few feet until you are looking down from the ceiling. From here, see yourself lying in bed. Notice how small and still that person looks. See the room around you, the furniture, the walls, the quiet objects that ask nothing of you. From this height, the giant problems of your day don't look like mountains anymore. They are just tiny ripples in the life of that person lying there. You can see the shape of your stress, and from the ceiling, it looks remarkably small. When we are burned out, our egocentric vision magnifies everything. A critical word from a supervisor feels like a world-ending event because it's the only thing we can see. But by rising to the ceiling, you are practicing spatial detachment. You are realizing that the you who is stressed is just one small part of a much larger, quieter room. This shift in distance is a biological signal to your brain to stop the alarm. It is hard to stay panicked about a big problem when you can see with your own mental eyes how much empty, peaceful space actually surrounds you. You are literally shrinking the emotional footprint of your worries until they no longer have the weight to crush you. The Stoics used this to maintain megalopsychia, greatness of soul. They knew that a great soul is one that refuses to be cramped by small things. As you hover there, look at your house from above. See the streets nearby, the other houses where people are also sleeping and dreaming. Everyone is carrying something, yet from this height, it all looks like a silent, beautiful dance of life. You are just one thread in a vast tapestry. The deadline that felt like a chokehold at 3 p.m. is now just a microscopic dot in a city of millions. By increasing the distance, you decrease the gravity of the stress. It no longer pulls on you. It no longer has the power to keep your heart racing. Now, let your awareness rise even further, just for a second, through the roof and into the cool night air. See the trees, the quiet roads, the vast blanket of the night. Feel how much room there is in the world. You have been living in a tiny box of what-ifs, but the reality of the universe is vast and open. This is the cure for the tunnel vision of burnout. It reminds you that you are part of something so large that your specific failures and successes are almost invisible. And in that invisibility, there is a profound, healing freedom. You don't have to be big tonight. You can be small. You can be a single, quiet breath in a silent world. As you gently lower your awareness back down, settling back into your body, notice that you've brought some of that vastness back with you. The room feels larger. Your chest feels more open. The problems that were huge 10 minutes ago have lost their density. They are now just small, hollow shells of what they used to be. You are back in your skin, but you are no longer trapped by it. You are a vast, quiet space where small things come and go, but the peace remains untouched. You are ready now to address the last physical remnants of the day. As your perspective settles back into your body, you might notice that while your mind has grown quiet, your muscles are still telling a different story. Even in this deep stillness, there is a hidden rhythmic tension, a subtle bracing in your solar plexus, a tightness in your hip flexors, or a defensive lift in your shoulders. This is what we call the clench. It is the body's physical attempt to prepare for a hit that hasn't come yet. It is the biological residue of a mind that is still, on some cellular level, trying to protect itself from tomorrow. This is somatic Stoicism, the understanding that to heal the mind, we must first convince the flesh that the war is over. We often think of Stoicism as a purely intellectual pursuit, a thing of logic and quotes. But the ancient Stoics knew that we are one substance, a union of breath, mind, and body. If the body is bracing, the mind cannot be at peace. The clench is your nervous system's way of staying in a state of high readiness, as if tomorrow's meetings or chores were physical predators waiting in the tall grass. You are essentially armoring yourself against a phantom. This chronic bracing is what makes burnout feel like a physical weight. It's not that you're tired of moving, it's that you're tired of holding yourself together with so much force. To release the clench, you must practice what the Stoics called apatheia, not a lack of feeling, but a freedom from irrational disturbance. Start with your jaw. Most of us carry our entire to-do list in the hinge of our mouth. Let your teeth part. Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. As you do this, you are sending a direct signal to your vagus nerve. There is no threat here. You are moving from the sympathetic nervous system, the gas pedal of stress, into the parasympathetic, the brakes of recovery. By physically unclenching, you are proving to your subconscious that you are safe, Now, move that awareness to your belly. This is where we hold our gut reactions to the world. When we are burned out, we breathe shallowly, into the chest, like a cornered animal. This keeps the heart rate high and the mind frantic. Soften the muscles of your stomach. Allow your next breath to expand deep into your abdomen, pushing the mattress away. This is diaphragmatic stoicism. You are taking up space. You are refusing to be small or tight. You are allowing the ruling faculty of your mind to expand into every limb, smoothing out the jagged edges of the day's friction. Imagine that your body is like a piece of iron that has been heated in the forge of a long, stressful week. Right now, you are being dipped into the cool, dark water of the night. Feel the hiss of the steam as the tension leaves you. The metal is becoming solid, tempered, and calm. You no longer need the armor. You don't need to brace for tomorrow because, as the Stoics taught, tomorrow will arrive with its own tools for handling it. By unclenching now, you are gathering the strength you will actually need, rather than wasting it on a rehearsal of worry. As you sink deeper, feel the very cells of your body letting go of the day. Your legs grow heavy, your hands go limp, and the back of your head feels fully supported. You are no longer a coiled spring. You are a calm, open vessel. The clench has dissolved, leaving behind a profound sense of heaviness that is actually the beginning of true lightness. You have surrendered the physical struggle, and in that surrender, you have found the only victory that matters, the mastery of your own internal state. As the physical clench dissolves into the mattress, your body finally speaks the language of safety. But the mind, ever the sentinel, might still be trying to peer over the horizon of tomorrow. We often think that the way to lower stress is to avoid thinking about the future altogether. But the Stoics used a far more potent tool, the premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Traditionally, this was a way to visualize challenges to stay sharp. But tonight, we are going to use a rare, healing version of this practice. We are going to mentally rehearse a quiet, disciplined response to the world, proving to your brain that even if the day is chaotic, you will be a sanctuary of order. Burnout is fueled by the feeling of being hit by life. Your cortisol spikes because your brain perceives tomorrow as a series of unpredictable attacks. By performing a gentle pre-sleep rehearsal, you are removing the element of surprise. You aren't imagining a perfect, stress-free world. That would be a lie that leads to more frustration. Instead, you are visualizing yourself moving through your tasks with a sense of stoic indifference. You see the emails arriving, but you see yourself responding with calm, measured breath. You see the difficult conversation, but you hear your voice remaining steady and firm. This rehearsal acts as a mental vaccine. By exposing your subconscious to a low-dose version of tomorrow's events in this safe, dark room, you build up an immunity to the panic they usually cause. You are telling your nervous system, "I have already seen this. I have already handled it in my mind. There is no reason to stay awake to prepare." This lowers your baseline cortisol because the threat has been downgraded to a known event. You are moving from a reactive state to a proactive one, even while you are lying perfectly still. As you drift closer to sleep, play a movie of your morning. Don't focus on the coffee or the commute. Focus on your internal state. See yourself waking up and refusing to reach for your phone. The first victory of the day. See yourself choosing one small, virtuous act. If a thought of a disaster pops up, don't push it away. Instead, See yourself meeting that disaster with a shrug of the shoulders and the thought, "This too is part of the work." By doing this, you are stripping tomorrow of its power to haunt your dreams. You are closing the loop of anxiety. Think of it as setting the default settings for your soul. When you don't do this, your brain defaults to panic the moment you wake up. But by rehearsing a quiet, steady presence tonight, you are programming your mind to return to this peace the moment the sun rises. You are ensuring that you don't just wake up into a world of tasks, but into a world of choices. The evils you premeditated are no longer scary. They are just the raw material you will use to build your character tomorrow. The relief that follows this rehearsal is profound. It's the feeling of a soldier who has finished their map work and can finally sleep because they know exactly where they are going. You are no longer wondering, what if? You know how. And because you know how, you can finally let the who disappear into the deep, dark waters of sleep. You have mastered tomorrow, so you are finally free to enjoy tonight. As the map of tomorrow settles into a quiet corner of your mind, you might feel the urge to check the success of this very moment. We are so used to being graded, measured, and judged that even our rest feels like a performance we need to get right. This is the poison of outcome dependency. We have been trained to believe that the value of an action lies entirely in its result, the paycheck, the applause, the finished product. But the Stoics saw this as a form of spiritual gambling. When you work for the result, you are a slave to a future you cannot control. Tonight, we are going to practice the art of divesting from outcomes, moving your sense of worth from the score back to the game itself. The Stoic archer provides the perfect image for this. An archer does everything in his power to hit the target. He chooses the best bow, he fletches his arrows with care, he trains his muscles to be steady, and he waits for the perfect moment to release the string. But the moment the arrow leaves the bow, the result is no longer his. A gust of wind could blow it off course. The target could move, the bow could snap. If the archer's happiness depends on the hit, he is a victim of the wind. But if his happiness depends on the excellence of his shot, the focus, the technique, the effort, then he is successful the moment the arrow is released, regardless of where it lands. Burnout is what happens when you try to own the wind. You are exhausted because you feel responsible for things that are not up to you. You feel the weight of the company's profits, the client's mood, or the market's fluctuations. But as you lie here, you are reclaiming your power. You are deciding that your only job is the shot. You are separating the process, which is yours, from the product, which belongs to the world. This is the secret to effortless effort. When you stop worrying about whether you will win, you can finally put all that wasted anxiety back into the work itself. You become more effective because you are no longer distracted by the fear of failure. Think of your life as a series of actions performed for their own sake. You breathe for the sake of breathing. You love for the sake of loving. You work for the sake of exercising your own intelligence and character. By divesting from the outcome, you are removing the hook that the world uses to pull you out of your peace. Tonight, visualize yourself performing your most stressful task, but without the need for it to go well. Imagine doing the work simply because it is the virtuous thing to do in that moment. See how much lighter your hands feel when they aren't clutching at a specific result. This is the ultimate cure for the Sunday scaries and the late-night what-ifs. If the outcome doesn't define you, then the outcome cannot break you. You are becoming result-proof. You can meet a failed project with the same calm as a successful one, because your internal score, the quality of your intent, is what matters. As you drift deeper, feel the need to succeed falling away like a heavy coat. You are no longer chasing a finish line. You are enjoying the sensation of the run. You are realizing that the win is not something that happens at the end of the day. The win is the calm, focused person you are becoming right now. With the heavy burden of the result gone, you are finally free to inhabit the present moment fully. Your mind is no longer a scout looking for a future reward. It is a king or queen sitting on the throne of the now. This leads us to the final gate of our nighttime journey, the protection of this inner space. As the need for results and the desire for external wins fall away, you find yourself standing at the gates of your own inner world. This is the final and most sacred space, the temple of the mind. To the Stoics, this inner sanctuary was the only place on earth where you could be truly free. But for the burned-out soul, this temple has often been neglected. The doors have been left wide open, allowing the barbarians of anxiety, the ghosts of old mistakes, and the shouting voices of the world's demands to rush in and set up camp. Tonight, we are going to reclaim this space. We are going to stand at the entrance and learn the art of spiritual gatekeeping. Imagine that your mind is a high-walled fortress. Most of the exhaustion you feel isn't from the work you do, but from the constant energy it takes to deal with the intruders you've allowed inside. When you allow a sharp comment from a stranger to ruin your evening, or a piece of bad news from the other side of the planet to keep you awake, you have let a barbarian into your temple. Epictetus taught that we should meet every incoming thought at the gate and demand its passport. We must ask, is this something within my control, or is it external? If it is external, it is not allowed inside. It must stay in the courtyard of the world, where it can make as much noise as it wants without disturbing your internal peace. This gatekeeping is the ultimate form of self-care. It is the realization that you are not obligated to have an opinion on everything that happens. You do not have to process every fear that crosses your mind. Burnout is a state of mental overcrowding. You have too many guests in your head who haven't paid rent. As you lie here, visualize yourself walking to the heavy iron doors of your subconscious. You are closing them now. You are telling the worries about tomorrow's schedule that they must wait outside the walls. You are telling the regrets about yesterday that they are no longer welcome at your table. This isn't avoidance. It is the proper management of your most limited resource, your attention. When you guard the temple, you create a cool interior. Even if the world outside is on fire, the air inside your fortress remains still and fresh. This is the difference between being a victim of your environment and being the master of it. The barbarians of anxiety are actually very weak. They only have power if you give them a seat by the fire. By refusing to engage with them, by simply watching them from the battlements without letting them in, they eventually grow tired and move on. You are learning to be the watcher of your thoughts, not the victim of them. As you drift toward the deepest part of the night, feel the thickness of the walls you've built. The world's noise is becoming a muffled hum, far in the distance. Inside your temple, there is only one voice, the voice of your own reason, which tells you that right now, you are safe, you are whole, you are enough. The temple of your mind is finally clean, silent, and ready for the deep, restorative work that only happens when the guards are at their posts. You can sleep with total confidence because you know that nothing can enter this space without your permission. As the gates of your inner temple click shut, a strange thing happens to the air around you. The vast looming shadow we call the future begins to lose its shape. We often speak of burnout as being tired of today, but the truth is usually deeper. We are tired of carrying next week, next month, and next year all at once. We treat the future as a single, massive boulder sitting on our chests. But as you lie here in the dark, we are going to perform a Stoic surgery on time itself. We are going to look at the anatomy of the present moment and realize that the future is not a solid object. It is a ghost that disappears when you try to touch it. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "Do not let the future trouble you. You will come to it, if you must, possessed of the same reason that you apply now to the present." Think about that. We spend our nights fighting wars that haven't started, using weapons we haven't built yet. But when you deconstruct the future into its actual components, you find that you never have to face a year of stress. You only ever have to face this one breath, this one movement, this one choice. Burnout is a macro disease, but the cure is micro. Your brain is currently trying to solve the problem of 1,000 moments simultaneously, which is why it feels like it's overheating. But you are only ever alive in a sliver of time so thin it has no thickness. In that sliver, there is no such thing as a mountain of work. There is only the sensation of your back against the bed. There is only the temperature of the air. In the now, there is no burnout, because burnout requires the past, regret, and the future, anxiety, to exist. If you remove those two, the present moment is almost always neutral, if not peaceful. Imagine you are climbing a massive staircase in the dark. If you think about the 10,000 steps above you, your legs will give out from the sheer weight of the thought. But if you focus only on the small circle of light where your foot is currently landing, the climb becomes easy. The Stoic practice of prosophy, or extreme mindfulness, is about staying in that circle of light. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, realize that you don't need to solve your life. You only need to inhabit this one harmless second. The scary future is actually made of the same harmless material as this moment. When you finally reach that stressful meeting next Tuesday, it won't be the future anymore. It will be the now. And just as you are breathing through this moment, you will breathe through that one. You have a 100% success rate of surviving your future so far, because every time it arrived, you met it with the present moment tools you already possess. By deconstructing the future into these tiny, manageable bits, you take away its power to overwhelm you. Feel the relief of realizing that you are only responsible for the next 5 seconds of your existence. You can put down the weight of the years. You can stop trying to plan your way out of exhaustion. As you sink into the mattress, let the future dissolve into the mist. It doesn't exist yet, and therefore it cannot hurt you. You are safe in the now, the only place where life actually happens. The anatomy of your moment is simple. Breath, heartbeat, stillness. Everything else is just an optional story. As the future dissolves into a harmless mist and the present moment becomes your only reality, you are standing at the threshold of a profound mystery. In our world, silence is often treated as a void, a terrifying gap that we feel we must fill with music, podcasts, or the endless chatter of our own internal dialogue. But to the Stoic, silence is not an absence. It is a presence. It is a tool, a deliberate choice, and a place of immense power. This is the silence of the sage. It is the act of becoming so still, both externally and internally, that the world's friction finally stops. and your nervous system can perform its own deep recalibration. Think of a glass of muddy water that has been shaken for years. If you keep stirring it, it will never clear. The only way to see the bottom is to set the glass down and do absolutely nothing. Most of our attempts at recovering from burnout involve more doing, more reading, more planning, more searching. But the sage knows that the highest form of healing is the cessation of all effort. This is the practice of Hezekiah, a deep stillness that goes beyond just not talking. It is the stillness of the ruling faculty. When you reach this level of quiet, your brain moves out of the frantic problem-solving mode and into maintenance mode. We are living in a state of chronic sensory overload. Every light, sound, and notification is a tiny poke to your nervous system. Over time, your nerves become frayed, like a wire that has been carrying too much current for too long. The silence of the sage acts as a cooling bath for these wires. By committing to absolute stillness, refusing to even move a finger, refusing to engage with the next thought, you are signaling to your body that the emergency of your life is over. You are allowing your brain's default mode network to reset. This is where the deep repairs happen. This is where the soul knits itself back together. Imagine you are a stone at the bottom of a deep, dark lake. The surface may be whipped by storms, and people may be shouting on the shore, but down where you are, it is cold, silent, and immovable. The noise cannot reach you. As you lie here, try to inhabit that stone-like quality. Let the silence be your armor. If a thought ripples the water, don't try to stop it. Just let it pass until the water is flat again. This stillness is a form of neural reset. It lowers your heart rate variability in a way that signals total safety to your primal brain. You are no longer trying to sleep. You are simply becoming the silence itself. The relief of the sage's silence is that it requires no skill. You don't have to be good at it. You just have to stop. Every time you resist the urge to itch, to move, or to think about your day, you are reclaiming a piece of your power. You are proving that you are the master of your vessel, not the passenger. In this absolute quiet, the static of burnout begins to fade. The ringing in your ears from a loud world stops. You are recalibrating your baseline, moving your normal from a state of high tension to a state of deep peace. As the absolute silence of the sage wraps around you like a protective cloak, you might notice one final stubborn resistance. It's a quiet voice that says, "I shouldn't be this tired," or "I wish I felt more energized by now." Even in our rest, we find ways to fight reality. We judge our fatigue as a weakness and our burnout as a failure of character. But the Stoics had a final, radical medicine for this internal conflict. Amor fati, the love of fate. Tonight, we aren't just tolerating your exhaustion, we are going to love it. We are going to accept this tired body exactly as it is, without a single spark of judgment. Amor fati is the practice of not just accepting what happens, but wishing for it to happen exactly as it does. Usually, we apply this to external events like a rainstorm or a missed bus. But the most profound application is internal. Your tired body is a fact of nature. It is the result of cause and effect, the natural consequence of the life you have lived, the burdens you have carried, and the stress you have endured. To be angry at your exhaustion is as logical as being angry at the sun for setting. By fighting your fatigue, you are creating a second arrow of pain. The first arrow is the tiredness itself. The second arrow is your resentment toward it. Think of your burnout as a wise teacher, not a broken machine. Your body has slowed you down because it is trying to save you. It has pulled the emergency brake because the road ahead was dangerous. When you practice amor fati for your tired limbs, you stop the internal war. You say to your racing heart and your heavy eyes, "Thank you for looking out for me. I accept this state. I love this moment of forced stillness." This radical acceptance shifts your nervous system from fight to flow. When you stop resisting your tiredness, the tiredness itself begins to soften. It transforms from a jagged, painful weight into a heavy, comforting blanket. We often think that if we accept our burnout, we will stay this way forever. But the opposite is true. Resistance is what keeps the tension alive. Resistance is a form of work. When you judge yourself for being unproductive, you are spending the very energy you need to recover. By embracing amor fati, you are finally allowing your energy to go toward healing instead of toward self-criticism. You are realizing that you are exactly where you need to be. This exhaustion is the raw material of your next chapter. You are not behind in life. You are simply in the winter season of your soul, and winter is necessary for the spring to follow. As you drift deeper into the night, let every ache and every heavy thought be welcomed. Imagine you are opening your arms to your fatigue, saying, "Welcome, friend. Stay as long as you need." Feel the relief of finally being on your own side. You no longer have to fix yourself before you can sleep. You are allowed to be broken. You are allowed to be empty. In the eyes of the universe, a tired human is just as beautiful as a soaring eagle. Both are simply nature doing what nature does. By loving your fate, you become invincible. If you love even the hard times, what can the world do to hurt you? You have taken the sting out of burnout. You are resting not because you have to, but because you choose to honor the reality of your body. The internal war is over. The peace treaty is signed. You are finally, deeply and lovingly at home in your own skin. As the peace treaty with your own exhaustion is signed, you find yourself standing in the center of a quiet, empty hall. For a long time, this hall has been occupied by a burnout boss. That frantic, loud-mouthed part of your brain that treats every task like a fire and every mistake like a crime. But tonight, in the soft light of amor fati, that boss has lost its voice. It has stepped down, and now there is an empty throne waiting for its rightful leader. This is what the Stoics called the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty. It is the highest part of your mind, the seat of reason and choice, and it is time for you to take it back. The hegemonikon is the part of you that stands above your feelings, above your fatigue, and above the world's demands. It is the captain of the ship. When you are burned out, the captain has been locked in the brig, and the passengers, your fears, your impulses, and your external pressures, have been trying to steer. They have run the ship aground because they aren't designed to lead. Your fears only know how to hide. Your impulses only know how to consume. And the burnout boss only knows how to drive you into the dirt. Reclaiming your hegemonikon means realizing that while you have feelings and you have exhaustion, you are the thing that observes them. Think of your mind as a kingdom. A king doesn't panic when a messenger brings bad news. He listens, evaluates, and decides how to respond. Burnout is a state of mental anarchy, where the messengers have taken over the palace. By reclaiming your ruling faculty, you are restoring the natural order. You are telling your anxiety, "I hear your report of danger, but I will decide if we move or stay still." You are telling your fatigue, I acknowledge your heaviness, and I choose to give you the rest you require. You are moving from being a reactive creature to a governing one. This isn't about willpower in the way we usually think of it. It's not about forcing yourself to do more. In fact, the first act of a true hegemonicon is often to order a retreat. It is the wisdom to say, "The battle is not worth the cost tonight. We will rest." When you are in your ruling faculty, you don't feel rushed. You feel stately. You move with the slow, deliberate pace of someone who knows they are in charge. As you lie here, feel yourself settling into that throne. The burnout boss is just a memory, a noisy ghost that has been escorted from the premises. You are the only authority here. As you drift towards sleep, practice making small, kingly decisions. Decide to let your left arm go completely limp. Decide to observe the next thought without joining it. With each choice, you are strengthening the connection between your conscious self and your seat of power. You are training your brain to look to you for instructions rather than to the chaos of the world. This is how you cure burnout permanently. You stop being a servant to your circumstances and start being the sovereign of your own soul. The throne is yours, the palace is quiet, and the kingdom of your life is finally at peace. As you sit upon the throne of your own mind, the noise of the burnout boss fading into a whisper, you might find yourself reaching for a reward. We have been conditioned to believe that the antidote to a hard day is indulgence, scrolling through colorful feeds, eating heavy comfort foods, or drowning our senses in loud entertainment. We call this pampering, but the Stoic knows it is often just another form of exhaustion. When we are burned out, our senses are already raw and overstimulated. Adding more pleasure is like trying to heal a burn with a different kind of fire. Tonight, we explore the rare Stoic secret of voluntary discomfort, the realization that true rest comes from fasting, not feasting. The Stoics practiced ascesis, which is the root of the word asceticism. It wasn't about punishment, it was about training. Seneca would occasionally live on the simplest food and wear the coarsest clothing to prove to himself that his happiness didn't depend on stuff. When we apply this to burnout, it means creating a sensory fast. True restoration doesn't happen when you give the mind a new toy to play with. It happens when you take all the toys away and let the mind be bored. Boredom is the space where the nervous system finally stops responding and starts repairing. By choosing a state of lack, no lights, no sounds, no scrolling, you are giving your brain the nothing it has been starving for. Think of your mind as a high-performance engine that has been running too hot for too long. Pampering is like adding more fuel and more decorative paint to the outside. But voluntary discomfort is like turning the engine off and letting it cool. Choosing to lie in the dark, choosing to resist the urge to check the phone, or choosing to eat a simple, plain meal is a radical act of self-care. It breaks the addiction to novelty that fuels our modern fatigue. When you stop chasing the next hit of dopamine, your baseline resets. You find that you don't need more to feel better, you just need less of the things that are draining you. This practice is the ultimate power move of the hegemonicon. It proves that you are not a slave to your comforts. If you can be perfectly content in a quiet, dark room with no entertainment, then the world has no power over you. You are rest-proofing your life. You realize that the pampering we are sold is often just a way to keep us distracted from our own emptiness. But in the discomfort of silence, you find a fullness that comfort could never provide. You are trading the high of stimulation for the depth of tranquility. As you drift now, feel the luxury of this fast. You aren't missing out on anything. You are gaining everything. You are giving your eyes a rest from light, your ears a rest from noise, and your ego a rest from validation. This is the most expensive spa in the world, and it is located right inside your own skin. By choosing this discomfort, you are letting your soul finally catch up to your body. You are becoming a person who can be happy with the bare essentials of life, a breath, a thought, and the dark. As the fast from the world's noise deepens, you might feel a lingering pull, a sense of duty toward others that keeps you from sinking fully into the dark. We are often told that to be a good person, we must carry everyone's problems on our shoulders. We extend our concern to the entire planet, worrying about people we will never meet and conflicts we cannot resolve, until our own heart is crushed under the weight of 1 billion lives. The Stoic Heracles offered a different map, the circles of concern. Imagine yourself as the center point of a series of concentric rings. The first ring is your own mind, the second, your body, the third, your family, and so on, out to the very edges of humanity. Burnout is what happens when you try to live in the outer rings while the center is on fire. You are trying to be a citizen of the world while your own internal city is in ruins. You have been told that focusing on the center is selfish, but the Stoics knew it was a mathematical necessity. If the center point, your own sanity and virtue, is weak, every ring that follows will be unstable. You cannot be a good parent, a reliable friend, or a productive citizen if your hegemonicon is shattered by exhaustion. Tonight, we are practicing radial retraction. We are pulling our concern back, ring by ring, until we are focused entirely on the center. This is not a permanent withdrawal from the world. It is a tactical retreat to save the base. Think of it like an oxygen mask on an airplane. You must secure your own before you can assist anyone else. When you are burned out, your circle has become too large for your current strength. You are leaking energy into the 4th and 5th rings, worrying about social media opinions, global trends, or distant drama, while your own health and peace are starving. By restricting your circle of concern to your immediate sanity first, you are stopping the leak. You are telling the universe, for the next few hours, my only responsibility is the quality of my own breath. As you lie here, mentally collapse those outer rings. Let go of the duty to fix the world tonight. Let go of the duty to be the emotional anchor for everyone you know. They are in their own circles, and they must find their own centers. By tending to your own first circle, you are actually becoming a better person for the others. A rested, stoic, centered human is a much greater gift to the world than a frantic, exhausted helper who is one step away from a breakdown. This is the virtue of the center. You are reclaiming the right to be your own first priority. Feel the immense relief that comes with this shrinking of your world. You don't have to be everywhere tonight. You only have to be here. The problems of the outer rings are still there, but they are no longer your burden to carry while you sleep. They are outside the walls. Inside the first circle, the air is still. The work is simple. The demands are zero. You are finally giving yourself the space required for the great repair. You are tending to the gardener so that the garden can eventually flourish. As you rest within that first circle of your own sanity, the air feels lighter, but you might still feel a phantom weight pressing against your chest. This is the weight of other people's business. We often confuse being a good person with being a warehouse for the world's problems. We carry the stress of a partner's bad mood, the anxiety of a company's stock price, or the frustration of a stranger's rudeness. But as the night deepens, it's time to perform a locus of control audit. This is the ultimate Stoic sorting process, where we look at every single thing keeping us awake and ask the one question that changes everything. Is this up to me? Epictetus, who began life as a slave, understood that true freedom isn't about where you are, but what you choose to care about. He taught that there are two piles in life. In the first pile are things we control, our own opinions, our own intentions, and our own reactions. In the second pile is everything else, what people think of us, the results of our work, and the behavior of others. Burnout is the result of spending 90% of your energy on the second pile. You are exhausted because you are trying to fix things that aren't in your jurisdiction. You are like a person trying to stop the rain with their bare hands. You'll only end up tired and wet. Tonight, we are going to discard the external pile. Imagine you are holding a giant basket of worries and you are tipping it out onto a table. Pick up the worry about your boss's opinion. Is it up to you? No. You can control your work, but not their mind. Discard it. Pick up the stress of the if-only thoughts about the past. Is it up to you? No. Discard it. As you go through this audit, you'll find that almost everything that has been burning you out actually belongs to someone else or to the universe itself. You have been paying the emotional tax on property you don't even own. When you discard these foreign stresses, something miraculous happens to your nervous system. The fight or flight response, which has been screaming in your ears all day, finally begins to quiet down. Your brain realizes that there is no battle to be fought tonight because the enemies don't even live in your house. You are returning the luggage to its rightful owners. If your coworker is angry, that is their internal pile. If the economy is shifting, that is the universe's pile. You are only responsible for your own prohairesis, your faculty of choice. By focusing only on your 10%, you become 10 times more powerful and 100 times more peaceful. This isn't about being indifferent to the world, it's about being effective. When you stop wasting your Stoic reserve on the uncontrollable, you have a massive surplus of energy for the things you can change. You wake up with a sharp, focused mind because you didn't spend the night trying to solve the unsolvable. As you sink into the mattress, feel the relief of being unresponsible for the rest of the world. You are not the manager of the cosmos. You are only the guardian of your own soul. Let the 90% of your stress drift away like smoke. It has no home here. You are left with a small, manageable and beautiful set of concerns: your character, your peace, and your rest. The weight is gone because the responsibility was never yours to begin with. You are finally light enough to sleep. You are finally clear enough to heal. With the 90% of the world's baggage finally cleared from your shoulders, the air in your room feels vast, almost empty. But in this emptiness, you might feel a new kind of pressure, the pressure of the to-do list waiting for you at sunrise. We have been lied to by a world that tells us that more is always better. We are told that to be successful, we must be a multitasker, a polymath, and a hustler all at once. We try to keep 10 plates spinning in the air, and we wonder why we feel so dizzy, so brittle, and so profoundly tired. This is the sickness of the scattered life. Tonight, we heal it with Stoic essentialism, the radical art of doing one thing with excellence rather than 10 things with mediocrity. Marcus Aurelius once asked himself a question that every burned-out soul should memorize. Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary? He knew that most of what we say and do is not essential. If you eliminate the non-essentials, you get the double benefit of doing less, but doing it better. When you are spread thin, you aren't actually doing 10 things, you are just leaking your soul into 10 different directions. You are a river that has been diverted into 100 tiny streams until the water is too shallow to move a single pebble. Essentialism is the cure for the fragmented mind. It is the courage to say no to the good so that you can say yes to the great. To a Stoic, virtue is found in the quality of the act, not the quantity. If you spend your day rushing from one task to another, you aren't practicing virtue. You are practicing busyness, which is just a form of cowardice, an escape from the difficult work of choosing what truly matters. Burnout isn't caused by having too much work. It's caused by the lack of meaning that comes from doing work poorly because you're in a hurry. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, I want you to mentally fire yourself from 9 of your 10 jobs. Imagine that tomorrow you are only allowed to do one thing, one project, one conversation, one act of kindness. Notice how your heart rate immediately drops when the list shrinks to a single point. This is the power of the monolith. When you focus on one thing, you enter a state of flow, the psychological equivalent of the Stoic inner citadel. In this state, the friction of the world vanishes. You aren't pushing through the work, you are being carried by it. By embracing essentialism, you are protecting your Stoic reserve. You are realizing that your energy is a sacred resource that should only be spent on what is necessary. This isn't about being lazy, it's about being surgical. It's about being a person who moves through the world with weight and purpose, rather than a leaf being blown by the wind of every new notification. You are choosing to be a deep human being in a shallow world. As you sink into the mattress, let the 9 unnecessary things fall away. They aren't yours to worry about tonight. Tomorrow, you will wake up not to a mountain of tasks, but to a single, beautiful path. You will do one thing well, and that will be enough. You are no longer a slave to the more. You are a master of the essential, and in that mastery you find the deep, quiet rest that only comes when you are no longer at war with your own schedule. As the many scattered demands of the world shrink into a single quiet point, you may feel a familiar, uncomfortable itch, the urge to justify your existence through movement. We live in a society that treats unproductivity as a sin, a moral failing that must be apologized for. We feel a strange guilt when our hands are empty, as if we are stealing time from the universe. But tonight, we are going to perform a radical act of Stoic rebellion. We are going to discuss the virtue of inactivity. This is not laziness, which the Stoics despised, but the deliberate cessation of movement for the sake of arete, excellence of the soul. The Stoics understood that a bow that is always strung will eventually snap. Arete is not a state of constant output. It is a state of being in harmony with nature. And nature is not always producing. The forest does not grow in the winter. It rests. The tide does not always come in. It retreats. If you refuse to have a fallow season in your own life, you aren't being virtuous. You are being arrogant. You are pretending to be something other than a biological being. True virtue requires the wisdom to know when to act and the courage to know when to be still. By defending your right to be unproductive tonight, you are actually protecting the quality of your future work. You are tending to the source of the water rather than just obsessing over the pipes. Think of your soul as a masterpiece in progress. A painter does not touch the canvas every second of the day. They spend hours just looking, reflecting, and waiting for the right light. This inactivity is actually the most important part of the creation. Burnout is what happens when you try to paint in the dark with a shaky hand because you're afraid to stop. Stoic inactivity is a sacred pause. It is the moment you step back to see if you are still heading in the right direction. When you allow yourself to be still, your hegemonicon, your ruling faculty, has a chance to catch its breath. You move from the doing state, which is often just a series of conditioned reflexes, to the being state, where true wisdom lives. Tonight, as you lie here, I want you to reclaim your moral right to do absolutely nothing. You do not need to earn this rest. You do not need to have checked enough boxes today to deserve this silence. You are a part of the universe, and the universe does not demand a receipt for your existence. Inactivity is the laboratory of the soul. It is where your experiences are processed, where your wounds are knit back together, and where your character is solidified. By refusing to be productive for these 4 hours, you are being highly effective in the only way that matters. You are maintaining the instrument of your own life. Feel the weight of usefulness falling off of you. You are not a tool. You are not a resource. You are a conscious being whose primary duty is to be sane, whole, and virtuous. If being unproductive tonight is what is required for your sanity, then being unproductive is your highest moral duty. Let the world's frantic pace continue without you. You are standing in the eye of the hurricane, where it is perfectly still. You are not wasting time, you are saving your life. As the moral weight of productivity lifts, you are left in a rare and beautiful silence. Yet even here, a small, restless part of you might still be calculating, measuring this rest against your future goals, wondering if this peace will make you more successful on Monday. This is the final, flickering flame of the ego. It is the part of us that believes we are the center of a grand drama, and that our success is a mountain we must climb to prove our right to exist. The Stoics knew that the ego is not a friend. It is an insatiable master. It is the primary engine of burnout because it never says enough. Tonight, we are going to de-escalate the ego and realize that the success you've been chasing is often just a gilded cage. To the Stoic, the ego is a collection of externalities: your job title, the number in your bank account, the praise of people who don't truly know you. We burn out because we try to build our home on these shifting sands. Epictetus taught that if you want to be beautiful, you should make your own choices beautiful. He didn't say make your resume beautiful. When we tie our worth to success, we hand the keys of our happiness to a world that is fickle and indifferent. We become like a runner who is terrified of the finish line because they know that as soon as they cross it, the ego will simply point to a new, further one. This constant reaching is what exhausts the spirit. It is a hunger that cannot be fed. De-escalating the ego means performing a radical egoectomy. It is the realization that you don't need to be special to be happy. In fact, the need to be special is a burden. When you accept that you are a tiny temporary part of a vast universe, the pressure to make a mark vanishes. You stop seeing life as a competition and start seeing it as a craft. A Stoic does not work to succeed. They work to express arete, virtue, in the moment. If the world calls it success, fine. If the world ignores it, that is also fine. By detaching your identity from the outcome, you kill the engine of burnout. You are no longer fueled by the volatile gas of external validation, but by the steady internal battery of your own character. As you lie here, imagine your public self, the one who needs to be successful, admired, and right, is slowly evaporating. What remains? A person who breathes, a person who thinks, a person who loves. These are the things that the ego cannot touch, and they are the only things that actually matter. You are not your career trajectory. You are not your productivity metrics. You are a conscious piece of the cosmos, and the cosmos doesn't need you to succeed to love you. It just needs you to be. Feel the immense relief of being ordinary. It is the most restful state a human can inhabit. Let the need to be great fall away into the shadows. You are finally safe from the judgment of your own pride. You are resting not so you can win tomorrow, but because you are a living being whose nature requires stillness. The ego is a loud, demanding child, but tonight you have put it to sleep. You are the adult in the room, quiet, humble, and perfectly content with the bare reality of the present. You have nothing to prove. You have no one to defeat. You are simply here. As the ego finally falls silent, leaving you in a state of humble, ordinary peace, we arrive at the most potent and perhaps most paradoxical Stoic tool for healing. We often treat our stressful days as an infinite burden, a relentless stream of to-dos that will never end. But the Stoics practiced memento mori, the remembrance of death, not to be morbid, but to achieve a radical clarity. This is the last time meditation. The realization that even your most stressful, exhausting days are a finite resource. One day, you will experience your last busy Monday, your last frustrating meeting, and your last heavy evening. When you realize that your days are numbered, the stress of those days begins to transform into something else, a strange, bittersweet gift. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself that he could leave life right now and that this should determine what he did, said, and thought. Burnout thrives on the illusion of forever. We feel crushed because we imagine this grind will continue for an eternity. But when you apply the last time lens, you realize that you aren't just getting through a day, you are consuming one of the very few days you have been granted. To spend a day in a state of frantic, ego-driven misery is to throw a diamond into the sea. When you realize that the clock is ticking, the emergencies of your work start to look remarkably trivial, and the value of your peace becomes immeasurable. Think of something that stressed you out today. Now, imagine you are looking back on this moment from the very end of your life. From that perspective, would you wish you had spent more time worrying about that email? Or would you simply be grateful for the sensation of the air in your lungs and the warmth of your blankets? The last time meditation forces a revaluation of all values. It strips the weight from your stresses and gives it back to your life. You realize that you don't have to go to sleep so you can work tomorrow. You get to rest because you are a living being who is still here to experience the night. Tonight, as you drift, consider that there will be a last time you ever feel this specific heaviness in your limbs. There will be a last time you hear the house settle in the quiet of the night. This realization doesn't make the tiredness go away, but it removes the resentment of the tiredness. It makes your exhaustion feel like a part of the human experience, a sign that you are participating in the brief, beautiful, and often difficult drama of being alive. You are no longer fighting the day. You are witnessing its departure. You are honoring the fact that you survived another, of your finite number of days. This is the ultimate perspective shift. When you know your time is limited, you become very protective of your internal state. You stop giving your diamonds, your hours, to people and problems that don't deserve them. You realize that your rest is not a break from life, but a vital part of life. You are resting for the sake of the life you have left. As you sink into the mattress, feel the profound okayness of this moment. The world is still spinning, the future is still coming, but for right now, you are a living, breathing human being who has completed one more day of their journey. That is enough. As the bittersweet clarity of your own mortality settles in, you realize that the most precious thing you can do with your remaining time is to protect the sanctuary where you experience it. We have spent hours dismantling the burnout boss and silencing the ego, but the world is a persistent invader. Tomorrow, the barbarians will return to your gates. Emails will chime, voices will demand, and the infinite scroll will beckon. To stay healed, you must transition from a state of recovery to a state of fortification. This is psychological fortress building, the deliberate construction of a mental space where the world's noise is not just muted, but fundamentally unable to enter. The Stoics called this the inner citadel. It is a fortress that is not made of stone and mortar, but of judgment. The world cannot enter your mind unless you give it a passport. Marcus Aurelius noted that the soul is dyed by the color of its thoughts. If you leave your mind open to every passing outrage and every trivial demand, your soul will be dyed in the gray of exhaustion. Building the fortress means creating a buffer of reason. Between the external event and your internal response, there is a gap. The larger you make that gap, the stronger your walls become. To build your fortress tonight, visualize 3 specific pillars that hold up the roof of your sanctuary. The pillar of essentialism, the firm belief that you only owe your attention to what is virtuous and necessary. Everything else is a ghost. The pillar of indifference, the deep-seated knowledge that external outcomes, success, failure, praise, blame, are preferred indifference and have no power to change your character. The pillar of presence, the refusal to leave the now. The fortress has no windows into the past or the future. It is a solid tower of the present. Burnout is what happens when we live on the front lines without ever retreating to the keep. Tonight, as you drift toward the final stages of sleep, feel yourself stepping into this citadel. The walls are thick, the air is cool, and the noise of the world is 1,000 miles away. You are not hiding, you are centering. From this fortress, you can look out at your life with the view from above and see that while the storms may blow outside, the candle in your hand remains perfectly still. You have built this space through the difficult work of self-reflection and the radical acceptance of amor fati. It is your most valuable piece of property. Tomorrow, when the first urgent notification tries to breach your peace, you will meet it at the gate. You will look at it through the lens of your locus of control audit, and if it does not serve your virtue or your sanity, you will simply refuse it entry. You are no longer a victim of your environment. You are the architect of your internal atmosphere. As you close your eyes for the final time tonight, feel the heavy, secure click of the fortress doors locking behind you. You are safe. You are whole. You are the sovereign of this space. The silence here is not empty. It is full of the strength you have reclaimed. As the heavy gates of your inner citadel lock tight, you might notice one last ember glowing stubbornly in the dark, the heat of resentment. When we are deeply burned out, We often carry a low simmering anger toward our employers, our clients, or even toward ourselves for having allowed things to reach this point. Most people try to suppress this anger, fearing it is a sign of a lack of control, or that it is somehow unstoic to feel such a sting. However, the ancient Stoics understood that while blind rage is indeed a vice that clouds the mind, the raw energy behind an emotion can be harvested and redirected toward a higher purpose. This is the transmutation of anger. Instead of letting resentment burn you out from the inside like a slow-consuming fire, you are going to use that heat to forge the cold, indestructible steel of your new boundaries. Anger is frequently the sentinel of the soul. It is the primitive, honest part of your consciousness that realizes you are being treated unfairly, that your time is being stolen, or that your prohairesis, your sacred faculty of will, is being trampled. To the Stoic, the goal of life is not to be a passive doormat or a silent martyr, but to be a person of active justice. If you feel a deep, gnawing resentment, it is a biological signal that a vital boundary has been breached. Instead of reacting with a shouting anger, which the philosopher Seneca famously called a short madness, you will utilize a calculating anger. You take the raw, kinetic energy of that frustration and transform it into the structural strength required to finally and permanently say no. To transmute this energy effectively, you must follow a disciplined path of functional analysis. The first step is to locate the heat by identifying the specific source of the resentment. You must ask yourself if the anger is directed toward a specific person, a recurring task, or perhaps a violation of your rest. Once identified, you perform the difficult task of stripping the ego. This means removing the dramatic, self-pitying narrative of, "How dare they treat me this way?" and replacing it with a simple, objective observation of what is actually occurring. You remove the victimhood and look at the facts of the interaction. Finally, you forge the law. You use the remaining energy of that anger to write a new internal rule for yourself. For instance, the energy you once felt as hot anger can now be used to maintain a cold silence and a lack of response when a non-urgent request arrives after your designated workday has ended. The anger is essentially converted into the willpower needed to uphold the boundary. When you successfully transmute anger into a boundary, the anger itself begins to evaporate because it has finally fulfilled its evolutionary job. You no longer need to feel active malice toward a manager or a client if you have simply decided, with stoic firmness, exactly what you will and will not do. The boundary becomes the cooling agent for the resentment. You move from a state of victimhood, where anger acts as a poison to your own system, to a state of agency, where anger has been utilized as a constructive tool. You find that you are no longer exhausted by the internal conflict because you are protected by the clarity of your own rules. As Marcus Aurelius suggested, the best revenge against those who wrong you is to simply be unlike the one who performed the injury. By staying calm while they are frantic and by being firm where they are demanding, you reclaim your dignity. By setting a firm, quiet boundary, you are practicing the ultimate stoic revenge of remaining peaceful while the world remains chaotic. You are using the very fire that threatened to burn your house down to instead light the lanterns of your fortress. This process is the final piece of the architecture of your recovery. The fortress is built, the boundaries are forged, and the world is kept at its proper distance while you are safely anchored within. There is nothing left to do tonight, nothing left to solve, and no one left to please. You have moved through the infinite scroll of the digital world, bypassed the burnout boss of your own ego, and arrived at the infinite silence of the sage. Consider the weight that has been lifted now that the resentment has been put to work. You are no longer carrying the burden of other people's expectations because you have filtered them through your own reason. Your nervous system is no longer bracing for an attack because you have built the walls that make such an attack impossible. The 4-hour journey you have taken through your own mind has led you back to the center of your power. Your journey is complete, the frantic work of the day is dead, and the steady wisdom of the night is finally alive. You are resting not as an escape, but as an act of sovereignty. As you sink into the final depths of this silence, remember that the hegemonicon, your ruling faculty, is back on its throne. The boundaries you have set tonight are the guards at the door, ensuring that when you wake, you do not immediately fall back into the traps of the non-essential. You are a person who knows their own value, who understands the limits of their control, and who loves their fate enough to protect it. The silence surrounding you now is not an empty void, but a full and vibrant peace. It is the peace of a soul that has finally stopped fighting itself. As the heavy gates of your inner citadel lock tight, you might notice one last ember glowing stubbornly in the dark, the heat of resentment. When we are deeply burned out, we often carry a low simmering anger toward our employers, our clients, or even toward ourselves for having allowed things to reach this point. Most people try to suppress this anger, fearing it is a sign of a lack of control or that it is somehow unstoic to feel such a sting. However, the ancient Stoics understood that while blind rage is indeed a vice that clouds the mind, the raw energy behind an emotion can be harvested and redirected toward a higher purpose. This is the transmutation of anger. Instead of letting resentment burn you out from the inside like a slow-consuming fire, you are going to use that heat to forge the cold, indestructible steel of your new boundaries. Anger is frequently the sentinel of the soul. It is the primitive, honest part of your consciousness that realizes you are being treated unfairly, that your time is being stolen, or that your prohairesis, your sacred faculty of will, is being trampled. To the Stoic, the goal of life is not to be a passive doormat or a silent martyr, but to be a person of active justice. If you feel a deep, gnawing resentment, it is a biological signal that a vital boundary has been breached. Instead of reacting with a shouting anger, which the philosopher Seneca famously called a short madness, you will utilize a calculating anger. You take the raw, kinetic energy of that frustration and transform it into the structural strength required to finally and permanently say no. To transmute this energy effectively, you must follow a disciplined path of functional analysis. The first step is to locate the heat by identifying the specific source of the resentment. You must ask yourself if the anger is directed toward a specific person, a recurring task, or perhaps a violation of your rest. Once identified, you perform the difficult task of stripping the ego. This means removing the dramatic, self-pitying narrative of "how dare they treat me this way," and replacing it with a simple, objective observation of what is actually occurring. You remove the victimhood and look at the facts of the interaction. Finally, you forge the law. You use the remaining energy of that anger to write a new internal rule for yourself. For instance, the energy you once felt as hot anger can now be used to maintain a cold silence and a lack of response when a non-urgent request arrives after your designated workday has ended. The anger is essentially converted into the willpower needed to uphold the boundary. When you successfully transmute anger into a boundary, the anger itself begins to evaporate because it has finally fulfilled its evolutionary job. You no longer need to feel active malice toward a manager or a client if you have simply decided, with stoic firmness, exactly what you will and will not do. The boundary becomes the cooling agent for the resentment. You move from a state of victimhood, where anger acts as a poison to your own system, to a state of agency, where anger has been utilized as a constructive tool. You find that you are no longer exhausted by the internal conflict because you are protected by the clarity of your own rules. As Marcus Aurelius suggested, the best revenge against those who wrong you is to simply be unlike the one who performed the injury. By staying calm while they are frantic, and by being firm where they are demanding, you reclaim your dignity. By setting a firm, quiet boundary, you are practicing the ultimate stoic revenge of remaining peaceful while the world remains chaotic. You are using the very fire that threatened to burn your house down to instead light the lanterns of your fortress. This process is the final piece of the architecture of your recovery. The fortress is built, the boundaries are forged, and the world is kept at its proper distance while you are safely anchored within. There is nothing left to do tonight, nothing left to solve, and no one left to please. You have moved through the infinite scroll of the digital world, bypassed the burnout boss of your own ego, and arrived at the infinite silence of the sage. Consider the weight that has been lifted now that the resentment has been put to work. You are no longer carrying the burden of other people's expectations because you have filtered them through your own reason. Your nervous system is no longer bracing for an attack because you have built the walls that make such an attack impossible. The 4-hour journey you have taken through your own mind has led you back to the center of your power. Your journey is complete, the frantic work of the day is dead, and the steady wisdom of the night is finally alive. You are resting not as an escape, but as an act of sovereignty. As you sink into the final depths of this silence, remember that the hegemonicon, your ruling faculty, is back on its throne. The boundaries you have set tonight are the guards at the door, ensuring that when you wake, you do not immediately fall back into the traps of the non-essential. You are a person who knows their own value, who understands the limits of their control, and who loves their fate enough to protect it. The silence surrounding you now is not an empty void, but a full and vibrant peace. It is the peace of a soul that has finally stopped fighting itself. As you dwell within the silence of your own fortress, there is one final, radical act of honesty required to truly shatter the cycle of exhaustion. We have spent years convincing ourselves that we are biological machines, capable of endless input and relentless output. We treat our bodies like hardware that can be upgraded with more caffeine or better apps, and we treat our minds like processors that should never slow down. But tonight, the non-dual Stoic perspective invites you to drop the mask. You must engage in radical candor with the self. You must look into the mirror of your own soul and admit the most liberating truth of all. You are not a machine. You are a biological being with finite energy, deep needs, and a nervous system that was never designed for the modern world. Admitting this is not an admission of weakness. It is an admission of reality, and the relief that follows is the final cure for burnout. When you view burnout not as a malfunction, but as a path, you begin to see that your exhaustion is actually a friend trying to lead you back to your own nature. The machine metaphor is a lie created by a world that values your utility over your humanity. Machines do not need meaning, they do not need silence, and they do not need arete. But you do. When you stop fighting the fact that you have limits, the friction of your life suddenly vanishes. You realize that you have been trying to live at a pace that is physically impossible, and the failure you felt was actually just your body being a body. The relief of this admission is like a heavy armor being unbolted from your chest. You no longer have to perform the impossible. You can finally stop trying to be optimized and start trying to be whole. The Stoics taught us to live in accordance with nature, both the nature of the universe and our own human nature. Human nature requires rhythm. It requires the up of the day and the down of the night. It requires the action of the city and the stillness of the porch. When you admit you are not a machine, you are essentially returning to the non-dual state, where there is no longer a conflict between who you are and what you should be doing. The burnout was the obstacle, but now the burnout has become the teacher. It has taught you that your previous way of living was unsustainable. It has forced you to build this inner citadel. It has led you to the realization that your value is inherent, not manufactured. The obstacle has cleared the path to a better life because it has stripped away the illusions of invincibility that were making you miserable. Imagine the freedom of waking up tomorrow and not having to be a super user of your own life. You are just a human. You will do some things well. You will leave some things undone, and you will prioritize your sanity over your productivity. This is the ultimate Stoic rebellion. By admitting your limitations, you become paradoxically more powerful because you no longer waste energy on the performance of being a machine. You can put all that recovered energy into the few things that truly matter. The relief is profound because the secret is out. You cannot do it all, and you were never meant to. You are a part of nature, and nature is perfectly content to let you rest. As you sink into the mattress, let the last of the machine mind dissolve. Feel the soft, vulnerable, and incredibly resilient reality of your own body. You are a breathing, feeling, finite, and beautiful creature of the earth. The burnout was just the universe's way of tapping you on the shoulder and reminding you of this truth. By accepting your humanity, you are finally free from the burnout boss forever. You have used the obstacle to find a way of living that is sustainable, virtuous, and deeply quiet. The path is clear, the fortress is secure, and you are finally allowed to just be. This is the end of the struggle. You have dismantled the digital noise, reclaimed your will, forged your boundaries, and accepted your nature. You have moved from a state of fragmentation to a state of unity. The silence of the night is now your silence. The peace of the universe is now your peace. You have done the work. You have found the citadel. You are home. As you rest within the security of your fortress, protected from the ghost of future regret and the burnout boss, you may find one final tether connecting you to your exhaustion, your job title. We are conditioned by a frantic society to introduce ourselves by our labor, to define our worth by our rank in a corporate hierarchy, and to see ourselves as cogs in a specific economic machine. When that machine begins to grind us down, we feel as though our very identity is being erased. But tonight, we dismantle this final illusion by embracing the Stoic concept of citizenship of the world. This is the realization that your primary value is not tied to a specific job title or a professional role, but to your membership in the cosmopolis, the universal community of rational beings. The Stoics, from the Emperor Marcus Aurelius to the formerly enslaved Epictetus, believed that every human being has two citizenships. The first is local and accidental. It is the job you hold, the city you live in, and the specific duties you perform. The second is universal and essential. It is your role as a conscious part of the universe. Burnout occurs when we collapse these two identities into one, believing that if we fail at our local job, we have failed as universal human beings. But a title is merely a costume you wear for a brief scene in a very long play. Whether the costume is that of a CEO or a clerk, the quality of the actor remains the same. Your value lies in your character, your reason, and your capacity for virtue, things that no company can give you and no economic downturn can take away. By expanding your identity to that of a citizen of the world, you create a profound psychological distance between who you are and what you do for a living. You realize that your job is a tiny, temporary assignment that does not define your essence. When you are no longer defined by your title, you no longer feel the desperate need to defend it at the cost of your health. You can walk away from a stressful task or set a hard boundary because you know that your dignity remains intact regardless of your output. You are a part of the grand design of the cosmos, a rational agent whose primary work is to live with integrity and wisdom. This universal work is never-ending and always successful, regardless of what happens in your local career. This perspective shift brings an immense sense of relief. You are no longer a senior manager or a consultant or a founder trying to stay afloat. You are a human being observing the world. The weight of professional expectation begins to feel light, almost comical, when compared to the vastness of the universe you inhabit. Your exhaustion is no longer a career failure, but simply a biological fact being experienced by a traveler on this earth. You can afford to rest because your citizenship is guaranteed by your birth, not your performance. You have nothing to prove to the cosmos. You are already a full member of the only community that truly matters. As you drift toward sleep, let the labels and titles you have carried all day fall to the floor like discarded clothes. They are not you. They are just the names other people use to describe your utility. In the dark, in the silence of your own mind, you are nameless and infinite. You are a citizen of the stars, a piece of the eternal reason that governs all things. Your value is absolute, immovable, and entirely independent of your productivity. You are resting as a sovereign being, answering to no one but your own nature. The world's demands are small, but your spirit is large. This realization is the final stone in your fortress walls. You have moved through every layer of the Stoic path, from the infinite scroll to this universal citizenship. You are now fully equipped to live a life of tranquility, no matter what tomorrow brings. You have reclaimed your mind, your body, and your soul from the barbarians of the modern world. You are at peace because you finally know who you are. As you stand at the peak of this 4-hour journey, the walls of your inner citadel are high. The ghost of future regret has been pacified, and your identity as a citizen of the world has been firmly established. Now, there is only one final movement left to make. You must step beyond the walls of the individual mind and enter into the cosmic pulse. This is the ultimate Stoic act of alignment, where you stop trying to beat your own path through the world and instead allow your breath to synchronize with the natural, effortless rhythm of the universe. In this state, the very idea of burnout becomes impossible because you are no longer a separate engine trying to power itself. You are a single cell in a vast, living organism that has been breathing for billions of years. The Stoics believed in sympatheia, the idea that all things in the cosmos are woven together in a single web of cause and effect. They saw the universe not as a cold, dead machine, but as a living entity governed by an eternal, rhythmic reason. Burnout is what happens when we try to live against the grain of this rhythm. We try to accelerate when the universe is slowing down. We try to hold on when the universe is letting go. We create a friction that wears us down to the bone. To contemplate the cosmic pulse is to realize that you do not have to generate your own energy to survive the night. You only have to stop resisting the energy that is already flowing through you. As you lie in the stillness, bring your full attention to the rising and falling of your chest. This breath is not something you are doing. It is something that is being done to you by the same laws that move the tides and rotate the planets. There is a deep, slow pulse to the world. There is the pulse of the seasons, the pulse of day and night, and the pulse of life and death. When you align your breathing with this awareness, you are performing a biological surrender. You are letting go of the frantic self that believes it must always be pushing. You are realizing that the universe is doing the heavy lifting for you. You are simply along for the ride. This alignment brings a profound sense of weightlessness. Imagine that you are floating on the surface of a vast, calm ocean. You do not need to swim to stay afloat. The water holds you up by its very nature. The waves of your daily stress are just ripples on the surface, but deep down, the pulse of the ocean is steady and unshakable. By focusing on this cosmic rhythm, you move your center of gravity from your small, tired ego to the vast, inexhaustible cosmos. You realize that your exhaustion is just a small part of a much larger cycle of rest and renewal. You are not collapsing, you are just entering the exhale phase of your existence. The relief of this perspective is absolute. In the cosmic pulse, there is no such thing as being behind or failing. Can the moon be late for its phase? Can the tree be unproductive in the winter? Of course not. They are simply following the law of their nature. By aligning your breath with this truth, you give yourself permission to be exactly where you are. You are a part of the whole, and the whole is never in a hurry. The stars do not rush to their destination, yet everything is accomplished. Tonight, you are a star. You are a tide. You are a season. You are a heartbeat in the chest of the universe. Feel the tension leaving the very marrow of your bones as you stop trying to manage your life and start inhabiting it. The silence of the night is not empty. It is the sound of the universe breathing. As you synchronize with this quiet power, your nervous system finally achieves a state of perfect coherence. You are no longer a jagged, fragmented person trying to fix a broken world. You are a smooth, integrated part of a perfect system. You are safe because the system itself is safe. You are at rest because the universe is at rest within you. The journey from the infinite scroll to the cosmic pulse is complete. You have traveled through the layers of your own psychology, dismantled your ego, forged your boundaries, and finally merged with the rhythm of all things. The burnout has been fully transmuted into tranquility. You have reached the center of the labyrinth, and you have found that the center is peaceful, silent, and eternal. You have done the most difficult work a human being can do. You have learned to be still. As you drift at the edge of the cosmic pulse, you finally arrive at the most intimate chamber of your inner citadel. This is the dwelling place of the demon, the God within. The Stoics believed that every human being carries a fragment of the divine, a spark of the universal reason that resides in the center of our being. While the world demands your labor, your attention, and your output, your only true duty is to this internal spark. Burnout is the state of a soul that has allowed this flame to be neglected, smothered by the heavy blankets of obligation or blown about by the cold winds of external criticism. Tonight, we are going to stop being a provider for the world and start being a tending priest to this fragile internal flame. Tending to the demon requires a radical shift in your priorities. Most of your exhaustion comes from trying to feed the outer world, the burnout boss, the social feeds, and the endless expectations of others. But the God within does not care about your bank account or your job title. It only cares about the quality of your character and the peace of your mind. When you are burned out, you are spiritually dehydrated. You have been giving your water to everyone else, leaving your own internal garden to wither. To heal, you must realize that this inner spirit is the only thing that is truly yours. Everything else, your body, your property, your reputation, is just on loan from the universe. Only the demon is your own. Imagine that your soul is a small, quiet flame burning in a dark cave. If you let everyone in to shout and stomp around, the flame will flicker and eventually die. To protect it, you must be a ruthless guardian of your internal environment. You must treat your mind as a sacred space where only the virtuous and the necessary are allowed to enter. By tending to this flame tonight, you are performing a holy maintenance. You are cleaning away the soot of the day's stress. You are refueling the lamp with the oil of silence and self-compassion. You are realizing that if this internal light goes out, no amount of external success will be able to guide you through the world. This tending is a gentle, quiet process. It involves a soft and persistent no to the world and a deep, resounding yes to yourself. It means admitting that you cannot be everything to everyone and that your primary responsibility is to remain sane, whole, and kind. As you lie in the dark, visualize yourself cupping your hands around this internal flame. Protect it from the ghost of future regret and the noise of the many. Feel the warmth of this spirit spreading through your chest, reaching into your tired limbs and soothing your overactive brain. This is the only success that matters, to wake up with an internal light that is steady, bright, and clear. When you live for the demon rather than the ego, the weight of the world vanishes. You no longer feel the need to be productive because your value is already guaranteed by the spark of the divine within you. You are resting not just to recover, but to honor the spirit you carry. This is the highest form of Stoic self-care. It is the realization that you are a vessel for something vast and eternal, and that you must keep the vessel clean and quiet so the spirit can be heard. In the silence of this 4-hour journey, you have finally stopped the doing and returned to the being. You have tended to the priest, and now the temple is finally at peace. The long path from the infinite scroll to the God within is finished. You have rebuilt your fortress, forged your boundaries, accepted your humanity, and aligned your breath with the universe. You have returned to the source of your own power. The flame is burning steadily now, undisturbed by the world's chaos. You have moved beyond burnout into a state of ataraxia, a deep, unshakable tranquility that no local problem can touch. You are ready to rest, not as a broken machine, but as a silent sage who has found the eternal light in the center of the dark. As you settle into the deepest layer of your inner citadel, you encounter the final and perhaps most transformative tool of the Stoic path, silentium, or Stoic silence. This is not merely the absence of external noise, it is the deliberate silencing of the internal judge. Throughout this journey, we have analyzed, transmuted, and audited your burnout, but now we arrive at the point where even the analysis must stop. The healing power of silentium lies in the radical act of not having an opinion on your own exhaustion. Most of the suffering we associate with burnout does not come from the fatigue itself, but from the story we tell about that fatigue. We label our tiredness as a problem, a failure, or a sign that something is wrong with our lives. This mental labeling creates a second layer of exhaustion, the effort required to evaluate, judge, and worry about how we feel. When you practice Stoic silence, you observe the heaviness in your limbs and the fog in your mind, but you refuse to attach a good or bad label to them. You simply allow the sensation to exist without an accompanying opinion. By stripping away the judgment, you remove the sting from the experience. This internal silence is the ultimate form of mental rest. We spend our days in a constant state of value judgment, deciding whether every email, every interaction, and every feeling is for us or against us. This constant evaluation keeps the nervous system in a state of high alert. Silentium is the act of turning off the evaluator. You are exhausted. This is a neutral fact of nature, like the fact that it is dark outside or that the wind is blowing. By having no opinion on it, you stop the leak of energy that occurs when you fight reality. You are no longer struggling with burnout. You are simply witnessing a state of the body. The relief that follows this silence is profound. When you stop having an opinion on your exhaustion, you stop trying to fix it. You stop wondering when it will end, how you will feel tomorrow, or what it means for your career. You grant yourself the freedom to be tired without the burden of being a tired person. This silence creates a vacuum into which true restorative peace can flow. In the absence of your internal chatter, the body's natural healing mechanisms can finally work without interference. You are no longer the manager of your recovery. You are the space in which recovery happens. As you lie here, let the silence be absolute. If a thought arises about your burnout, meet it with a quiet indifference. Do not argue with it, and do not follow it. Treat it like a stranger passing by your window in the middle of the night, someone who has no business with you and to whom you owe no response. This is the silence of the sage, applied to the self. It is the realization that your internal atmosphere does not have to be a reflection of your physical state. You can be physically exhausted and mentally still at the same time. The God within remains unbothered by the fatigue of the body. This 4-hour journey has led you from the frantic noise of the world to this point of perfect internal stillness. You have dismantled the burnout boss, built your fortress, and reclaimed your citizenship in the cosmos. Now with silentium, you have even let go of the need to understand your own healing. You are resting in a state of pure being where no labels exist and no judgments are made. The exhaustion is there, the silence is there, and you are there. 3 things existing in harmony with no conflict between them. The path is finished. The work is done. The silence is yours. You have reclaimed your spirit from the noise of the world and returned it to the quiet of the stars. You are no longer a victim of burnout. You are a master of tranquility. Sleep now, not as one who is escaping a problem, but as one who has found the answer in the silence. I will go silent now, allowing you to inhabit this silentium as you drift into the deep, dark sea of sleep. Good night. As you rest within the absolute stillness of your inner citadel, having silenced the judge and accepted your humanity, you reach the final understanding of the Stoic path, the paradox of effortless effort. In the modern world, we are taught that achievement requires friction, that we must grind, push, and struggle to be worthy. We believe that if we aren't exhausted, we aren't working hard enough. But the Stoics, and later the practitioners of flow, discovered a different truth. They realized that the highest form of action is not a struggle, but a synchronization. This is the art of moving with the world rather than against it, finding a state of being where the doing becomes as natural and effortless as the breath you are taking right now. To the Stoic, this effortless effort is the result of perfect alignment with the Logos, or the natural order of things. When you are burned out, it is usually because you've been trying to force the world to be something other than what it is. You have been swimming against a current of uncontrollables, using your own finite energy to fight the infinite sea. Effortless effort begins the moment you stop fighting. It is the realization that you don't need to create the current. You only need to steer your boat. By focusing exclusively on your locus of control, your own intentions and your own character, the friction of the external world disappears. You move through your duties with the grace of a river flowing toward the sea, not because the river is trying hard, but because it has stopped resisting gravity. This is the Stoic version of flow, a state where the self disappears into the task. When you are in your ruling faculty, you are no longer worried about the outcome, the judgment of others, or the fear of failure. You are simply present. This presence is the ultimate energy saver. Most of our exhaustion doesn't come from the task itself, but from the mental chatter surrounding the task. The "what if I fail?" and the "I'm so tired of this." When you silence that chatter through silentium, the task becomes effortless. You find that you can do more with a calm mind than you ever could with a frantic one. You aren't working, you are expressing your nature. Imagine waking up tomorrow and approaching your life with this non-dual effort. Instead of seeing your to-do list as a mountain to be conquered, you see it as a series of movements to be performed. You do each thing with total focus, and then you let it go. You don't carry the weight of the previous task into the next one. You are like a skilled archer who focuses entirely on the form of the shot, knowing that once the arrow leaves the bow, the result is no longer his business. Because you aren't attached to the win, you don't feel the drain. You are fueled by the act itself, not the reward at the end. This is the only sustainable way to live in a high-pressure world, to become the calm at the center of the storm. As you lie here, feel the effortless effort of your own body. Your heart is beating, your lungs are expanding, and your cells are repairing themselves, all without a single thought or push from you. This is the intelligence of nature, and it is the same intelligence you are reclaiming for your mind. You are learning to let your life live itself through you. You are putting down the heavy oars of the burnout boss and letting the wind of the universe fill your sails. You are safe, you are guided, and you are finally moving in the same direction as the stars. The 4-hour path is complete. You have traveled from the frantic infinite scroll to the paradox of effortless effort. You have built your fortress, forged your boundaries, accepted your limits, and merged with the cosmic pulse. You are no longer a fragmented, exhausted worker. You are a unified, tranquil soul. You have found the secret that the ancients knew, that the greatest power is found in the greatest peace. You have done the work, and now you can reap the reward of a silence that is as deep as the ocean and as vast as the night. I will go silent now. The God within is at rest. The ghost of future regret has vanished, and you are resting in the effortless flow of the cosmos. Sleep now, citizen of the world, and wake in the light of your own internal sun. As you drift into the final chambers of this 4-hour journey, you encounter a question that often feels like a void. Who are you when you are not the productive one. We spend our lives building a personality around our utility, convincing ourselves that our value is a variable that rises and falls with our output. We become addicted to the identity of the achiever, the helper, or the provider, and when burnout strips away our ability to perform these roles, we feel a terrifying sense of erasure. But the Stoics would tell you that this erasure is actually a liberation. Tonight, you are invited to experience the dissolution of that false identity and discover the unshakable self that remains when the tools of your trade are put away. The productive self is a mask, a social construct designed for the marketplace. It is a set of behaviors and achievements that you use to negotiate for status and security. But your true nature, what the Stoics called your prohairesis, is not something you do. It is the entity that chooses. You are the conscious observer of the world, the silent witness to your own thoughts, and the keeper of your own integrity. These things do not require a paycheck, a job title, or a completed task to exist. When you stop being the productive one, you do not become nothing. You become, for the first time, your primary self. You return to the raw, unadorned fact of your existence. This dissolution of identity brings a radical and quiet joy. If you are not your work, then your work can no longer hurt you. If your value is not tied to your busyness, then the world has no leverage over your peace of mind. You realize that you have been holding yourself hostage to a set of expectations that were never your own. By letting the achiever die tonight, you allow the human to live. You find that you are just as worthy of respect, love, and existence when you are lying perfectly still in the dark as you are when you are running a boardroom or managing a crisis. The stars do not have to produce anything to be beautiful, and neither do you. Think of the relief of no longer having to maintain the brand of your own competence. You can be tired, you can be confused, you can be finished. These are all natural states of a human life, and they do not diminish your standing in the cosmos. By dissolving the identity of the productive one, you remove the primary engine of your burnout. You stop the internal whip that tells you to keep moving because you are afraid of the silence. In that silence, you find a version of yourself that is ancient, stable, and profoundly calm. This is the version of you that existed before you ever learned to work, and it is the version that will remain when all your work is done. As you sink into the mattress, feel the heavy labels of your life falling away. You are not a worker, a manager, or a servant of the clock. You are a living piece of the universe, currently at rest. You are a mind capable of reason, a heart capable of stillness, and a soul that is already complete. You have nothing to prove to this night. The darkness does not ask for your credentials, and the silence does not demand a report. You are finally allowed to be no one in the eyes of the world, which is the only way to be everything in the eyes of your own nature. The 4-hour path is finished. You have moved from the infinite scroll to this final dissolution of identity. You have built your citadel, transmuted your anger, and aligned with the cosmic pulse. You have found the God within and accepted the silence of the sage. You are now resting as a pure, unlabeled being. The world has lost its grip on you because you have let go of the handle. You are free. You are whole. You are at peace. I will go silent now. The productive one has gone to sleep, and the living one is finally at home. The long night of healing has reached its final destination. You have traveled through the ruins of burnout, rebuilt your inner citadel, and learned to see yourself as a citizen of the world rather than a cog in a machine. Now, as the last shadows of the 4-hour journey linger, we prepare for the transition back into the light. The dawn ritual of intent is not a list of tasks or a jumpstart for productivity. It is the final act of fortification. It is the practice of setting the ruling faculty, your hegemonicon, while you are still in the quiet space between sleep and waking, ensuring that when your feet finally hit the floor, you do so as a sovereign being, not a servant to the day's noise. The Stoics knew that the first few minutes of the morning are the most vulnerable. If you reach for your phone the moment you wake, you are surrendering your fortress before the sun is even up. You are allowing the barbarians of social media, news and emails to rush into your sanctuary and dictate your internal atmosphere. The dawn ritual of intent is a refusal of this surrender. It begins the moment your eyes open. Before you move, before you speak, and certainly before you check a screen, you must reclaim your throne. You lie still for a few moments and remind yourself of the truth you discovered in the dark, that your character is the only thing that matters, and that the world's chaos is external to your peace. To set the ruling faculty, you perform a mental rehearsal of the day ahead through the lens of the premeditation of evils, premeditatio malorum. This is not a practice of pessimism, but of preparation. You tell yourself that today you will likely encounter someone who is rude, a task that is frustrating, or a delay that is unexpected. By anticipating these things, you strip them of their power to surprise and burn you out. You decide in advance that your response will be one of stoic indifference. You tell yourself, the person may be rude, but I will remain just. The task may be long, but I will remain focused on the essential. The world may be loud, but my inner citadel is silent. This ritual also includes the morning audit of the essential. You ask yourself the question Marcus Aurelius asked, is this necessary? You look at the day's obligations and you mentally discard the non-essentials. You decide on the one thing well that will be your focus, and you give yourself permission to be unproductive in the areas that do not serve your virtue or your sanity. This is how you prevent the return of the burnout boss. You are not a victim of your schedule. You are the architect of your day. You are choosing to spend your limited energy only on that which is within your locus of control. Finally, you conclude the ritual with a deep, conscious alignment with the cosmic pulse. You breathe in the morning air and realize that you are a part of a vast, rhythmic universe that is currently waking up with you. You acknowledge that your value is already absolute, regardless of what you achieve in the hours to follow. You are a citizen of the world, a rational agent of the cosmos, and you are stepping into the day to play your part with excellence, but without attachment to the results. This is the effortless effort in action. You are ready to move, but you are not ready to be moved by the world's whims. As you drift now into the final deepest sleep of the night, know that the dawn ritual is waiting for you. It is the bridge between the healing you have found tonight and the life you will live tomorrow. You have rebuilt the temple, and now you have the tools to keep the lamps lit. The journey is complete. You have moved from the infinite scroll to the infinite silence. You have found your way home. As the first light of morning begins to touch the edges of your room, you prepare for the final act of your 4-hour journey, the donning of the armor of the mind. This is the ultimate defensive measure, a mental dressing ritual that occurs before you even draw back the covers. We often wake up feeling naked and exposed to the demands of the world, as if the first email or the first intrusive thought can pierce directly into our peace. To prevent this, you must learn to clothe your consciousness in Stoic principles, creating a psychological layer of protection that deflects stress before it can reach your core. You are not preparing for a battle, but for a day lived in accordance with your own nature. The first piece of armor you put on is the breastplate of the locus of control. As you lie still, you mentally trace the boundary between what is yours and what belongs to the world. You tell yourself that your opinions, your intentions, and your own character are your impenetrable shield. Anything that happens outside this circle, the opinions of colleagues, the delays in traffic, the shifting priorities of your company, is treated as external noise. By tightening this breastplate, you ensure that external events can strike you, but they cannot penetrate you. They hit the armor and fall away, leaving your internal state undisturbed and calm. Next, you wrap yourself in the cloak of indifference. In the Stoic sense, indifference does not mean a lack of care, but a lack of attachment to specific outcomes. You prepare to do your work with excellence, yet you wrap yourself in the understanding that the result is not entirely up to you. If the project succeeds, you accept it with grace. If it fails, you remain unshaken. This cloak protects you from the weight of expectation and the crushing pressure of perfectionism. It allows you to move through the day with a light step, because you are no longer carrying the burden of having to control the uncontrollable. You are focused on the quality of your effort, which is the only thing that truly belongs to you. Finally, you put on the helmet of perspective, which allows you to see the world from the view from above. From this height, the emergencies of your morning appear as they truly are, tiny, fleeting ripples in a vast and ancient universe. You see your life in the context of the cosmic pulse, and the frantic urgency of the modern world begins to look like a distant, muffled hum. This helmet protects your eyes from being blinded by the trivial and your ears from being deafened by the loud. It keeps your mind focused on the essential, ensuring that you do not waste your limited Stoic reserve on things that do not matter in the scope of a human life. With your armor fully donned, you are no longer the productive machine that can be broken by a heavy workload. You are a fortified soul, ready to interact with the world without becoming a victim of it. You can move with effortless effort because you are not fighting the environment. You are simply navigating it from within your citadel. The stress of the morning no longer feels like a personal attack. It is just the weather of the world, and you are perfectly dressed for it. You have reclaimed your power, and you have done so with a quiet, steady dignity that requires no outward display. The 4-hour path has led you to this moment of total readiness. You have dismantled the burnout, reclaimed your identity, and fortified your mind. The silence of the night has become the strength of the day. You are resting now in the final moments of perfect preparation, knowing that when you finally rise, you will do so as a master of your own internal atmosphere. You are armored, you are centered, and you are free. As the morning light grows more certain, you might feel a faint return of that old familiar pressure, the overwhelming weight of the whole day pressing down on your chest. To a mind recovering from burnout, a 10-hour workday looks like an unclimbable mountain. But your final Stoic fortification is the logic of the katorthomata, or the right action. In Stoicism, a virtuous life is not built in a day. It is built in the smallest, most manageable increments of time. You do not have to survive the day. You only have to perform the next right action with total presence and integrity. By breaking the day into these tiny, perfect steps, you deprive burnout of its greatest weapon, the future. Burnout is a macro catastrophe, but it is fought with micro victories. A katorthoma is an act performed in accordance with reason and virtue, regardless of how small it is. Making your bed with care is a right action. Answering one email with clarity and kindness is a right action. Taking a single mindful breath before a difficult meeting is a right action. When you focus only on the katathoma currently in front of you, the mountain disappears. You are no longer responsible for the 1,000 steps that follow. You are only responsible for the integrity of the step you are taking right now. This is the ultimate small step logic that keeps the inner citadel standing. This approach transforms your relationship with time and productivity. Usually, we rush through the present task because we are already worrying about the next 10. This mental sprinting is what drains our reserves. But when you commit to the logic of the right action, you slow down. You realize that if you do the now well, the future will take care of itself. You stop leaking energy into the horizon and start concentrating it into the present. This is how you achieve the paradox of effortless effort. You move through your day, one katathoma at a time, and by the end of the day, you find that the mountain has been climbed without you ever having to look at the peak. As you lie here in these final moments of rest, mentally deconstruct your upcoming day into these small, beautiful units. Do not think about the project. Think about the first sentence. Do not think about the shift. Think about the first interaction. Give yourself permission to ignore everything that is not the immediate right action. This is not avoidance. It is the highest form of discipline. It is the realization that your ruling faculty is most powerful when it is most focused. You are reclaiming your day from the burnout boss by refusing to play the game of more. You are playing the game of better, and better is always found in the smallest step. This logic is the final seal on your 4-hour journey. You have built the fortress, armored your mind, and now you have the map for the road ahead. You are no longer a victim of a looming, stressful future. You are a practitioner of the present moment, a citizen of the world who knows that a life of virtue is simply a string of right actions, one after the other. The weight is gone because the scale has changed. You are not carrying a day, you are carrying a moment, and you are more than strong enough for that. The path is complete, the work of healing is done. You have traveled from the chaos of the infinite scroll to the clarity of the smallest step. Your mind is quiet, your spirit is fortified, and your heart is aligned with the cosmic pulse. You have found the silence of the sage and the strength of the Stoic. You are ready to rest, and you are ready to wake. As you drift into the final, deepest reaches of this journey, you encounter the most radical truth of the Stoic path, the uncoupling of your human worth from your economic output. We have been conditioned by a frantic world to believe that our value is a variable that fluctuates with our productivity, as if we are only as good as the work we produce today. This belief is the primary engine of burnout, creating a state of constant, low-level panic, where rest feels like a theft and stillness feels like a failure. But tonight, you are performing the ultimate internal audit. You are realizing that your value is not a wage you earn through labor, but an inherent fixed property of your existence as a rational being in a vast cosmos. To the Stoic, the only thing that has true value is the quality of your character and your capacity for reason. These things do not disappear when you stop working. In fact, they are often most visible when you are doing nothing. When you are lying in the dark, choosing to be patient with your own exhaustion and kind to your own spirit, you are practicing a higher form of virtue than any productive task could ever offer. You are proving that you are a sovereign being who does not need the validation of a to-do list to be worthy of respect. You are enough simply because you are a conscious piece of the universe, observing itself with clarity and courage. The daily practice of being enough while doing nothing is a form of spiritual defiance. It is the act of looking at your empty hands and refusing to feel shame. It is the realization that a tree is not failing when it is not bearing fruit, and a field is not lazy when it lies fallow in the winter. They are simply following their nature, and so are you. By uncoupling your worth from your output, you remove the stinger from your burnout. The exhaustion remains, but the guilt vanishes. You are no longer a failed worker trying to recover. You are a whole human who is currently choosing rest as the most virtuous and rational action available to you. This perspective shift creates a profound and permanent relief within your nervous system. When you are no longer trying to buy your right to exist through your achievements, the internal pressure drops to zero. You find that you can inhabit the silence without the need to fill it with plans or justifications. You are resting in a state of total sufficiency. You are the God within, tending to the flame, and the flame does not need to produce anything to be beautiful. It only needs to burn. You are finally giving yourself the one thing the world would never grant you, the permission to be a human being instead of a human doing. As you sink into the mattress, let the last of the output mind dissolve. You are not a resource to be used, and you are not a tool to be sharpened. You are a citizen of the world, a master of your own inner citadel, and a silent observer of the cosmic pulse. In this moment of absolute inactivity, your worth is as vast as the night sky and as steady as the stars. You have nothing to prove, nothing to earn, and nothing to justify. You are enough, exactly as you are, in the deep and healing silence of this moment. The 4-hour path is finished. You have traveled from the noise of the infinite scroll to this final, unshakable peace. You have built your fortress, forged your armor, and reclaimed your soul from the burnout boss. You are no longer a victim of the world's demands. You are the architect of your own tranquility. The journey has led you back to yourself, and you have found that you are whole. I will go silent now. The work of healing is done. Sleep in the profound certainty that you are enough, and wake in the quiet joy of your own sovereign spirit. Good night. As you sink into the final velvet layers of this silence, you must perform one last internal clearing of your inner citadel. Throughout your life, you have unconsciously allowed other people, co-workers, bosses, clients, and critics to walk into your sanctuary and sit on the throne of your self-esteem. You have given them the power to act as the judge of your worth, waiting for their emails, their nods of approval, or their performance reviews to decide if you're allowed to feel peace. This is the ultimate betrayal of the self. Tonight, we are performing the Judge Meditation, a radical eviction of every external voice from the seat of your power. You are reclaiming the throne for your own ruling faculty, for no human being is qualified to judge the soul of another. The Stoics were clear that the opinions of others are indifferents. They are like the weather, sometimes pleasant, sometimes harsh, but always external and always beyond your control. When you base your self-esteem on a boss's praise or a co-worker's perception, you are building your home in a hurricane. You are handing the keys to your happiness to people who are just as flawed, anxious, and tired as you are. They are not sages. They are merely other travelers, often blinded by their own shadows. To let them sit on your throne is to live as a slave to their whims. Tonight, you realize that their judgment is nothing more than a collection of vibrations in the air or pixels on a screen. It has no power to touch the God within unless you grant it a passport. Imagine your self-esteem as a sacred court. In the past, this court has been crowded with the faces of people from your professional life, all shouting their requirements and their disappointments. One by one, see them leaving. They are not being banished with anger, but with a quiet, stoic indifference. You realize that they do not know the depths of your struggle, the quality of your intent, or the weight of your character. Only you can know these things. As they depart, the room becomes silent and spacious. You step toward the throne and sit down. You are now the only judge in the room. You decide that the standard of your life is not success in their eyes, but virtue in your own. This eviction brings a staggering sense of liberation. When your boss is no longer the judge of your worth, a difficult meeting becomes just a set of problems to be solved, not a threat to your existence. When a co-worker's coldness is no longer a metric of your likability, it becomes just a reflection of their own internal state. You are no longer bracing for impact because you have realized that their hammers are made of straw. By reclaiming your throne, you stop the constant performance of your life. You can finally afford to be honest, to be still, and to be tired. You are no longer working for their verdict. You are working for your own arete. As you drift now toward the absolute surrender of sleep, feel the solid, steady weight of your own self-governance. You are the sovereign of this mind. The world can demand your time and your labor, but it can never again demand your self-esteem. That is a closed account, accessible only to you. You are resting in the dignity of a soul that has finally stopped seeking permission to be whole. The fortress is quiet, the throne is occupied by its rightful owner, and the judge has gone home. You are answerable only to the truth of your own nature and the cosmic pulse of the universe. The 4-hour path has led you to this final moment of total independence. You have dismantled the burnout, armored your mind, and cleared your court. You have found the silence of the sage and the power of the self-ruler. The journey is complete. You have returned to the center of your own life, and you have found that it is a place of profound and unshakable peace. As you rest within the absolute quiet of your reclaimed kingdom, you might notice that the grand drama of your life, the titles, the crises, the monumental successes, has faded into the background. In its place, something far more durable remains: the mundane. We often burn out because we are constantly reaching for the extraordinary, believing that healing can only be found in a tropical vacation or a major life change. But the Stoics practiced a different kind of alchemy. They knew that true tranquility is found by anchoring your soul to the simplest, most fundamental realities of existence. This is Stoic gratitude for the mundane, the realization that a single breath of air or the warmth of a cup of coffee contains enough deep healing to sustain a soul for a lifetime. To the Stoic, everything we have is a loan from the universe, and it can be recalled at any moment. When you view your life through this lens of borrowed time, the mundane becomes miraculous. You realize that you are not entitled to the air in your lungs or the floor beneath your feet. They are gifts you are currently enjoying. This shift in perspective turns every small sensation into a sanctuary. When you stop worrying about the macro of your career, you can finally experience the micro of your existence. You find that there is a profound restorative power in the weight of your blankets, the stillness of the room, or the simple rhythm of your own heart. These are the smallest steps of gratitude that rebuild the spirit from the bottom up. Imagine waking tomorrow and, instead of immediately bracing for the day's demands, You focus entirely on the first mundane sensation you encounter. Perhaps it is the feeling of the morning air on your face or the first sip of coffee. In that moment, you are not a worker, a manager, or a productive one. You are a living being experiencing the universe through its simplest elements. By finding deep healing in these small things, you make your peace invincible. If your happiness requires a promotion, you are a slave. If your happiness can be found in a breath of air, you are free. This is the ultimate defensive armor. The world can take away your job or your status, but it cannot take away the quality of your breath or the warmth of the sun on your skin. This practice of mundane gratitude is the final cure for the burnout boss. The ego always wants more, but the soul is satisfied with now. By training your mind to find joy in the non-essential and the everyday, you starve the engine of burnout. You no longer need to achieve to feel whole, because you are already being nourished by the sheer fact of being alive. This is the effortless effort of the spirit. You are not working to be happy. You are simply noticing that you are already participating in a vast, beautiful, and rhythmic cosmos. The deep healing isn't waiting for you at the end of a project. It is available in every second you choose to be present. As you sink into the final surrender of this 4-hour journey, let your mind rest on one small, mundane thing you are grateful for in this moment. It doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be real. Feel the peace that comes from realizing that as long as you can breathe, you can heal. As long as you can observe the world, you are a part of it. You have moved from the infinite scroll to the infinite ordinary, and in doing so, you have found the only peace that the world cannot break. The journey is complete, the fortress is quiet, and the mundane has become your medicine. As you dwell in the profound stillness of your inner citadel, you may feel a familiar, twitchy sensation, a sudden impulse to check your phone, to plan for tomorrow, or to solve a problem that isn't even here yet. This is the dying gasp of the burnout boss, trying to lure you back into the frantic cycle of productivity. To combat this, you apply the final defensive maneuver, the wait-and-see technique. In Stoicism, this is the practice of sophrosine, self-mastery and temperance. It is the realization that an impulse is not a command, but merely a suggestion from your lower mind. By applying a deliberate Stoic delay, you starve the impulse of its power and protect your hard-won peace. Epictetus taught that we should never be carried away by the intensity of an impression. When a thought tells you that you must do something productive right now, you must learn to step back and say to the thought, "Wait for me a little, impression. Allow me to see who you are and what you represent." By creating this gap of time, you transition from a reactive state to a rational one. Most of the urgent urges that drive us to burnout are actually just anxieties in disguise. When you wait, you often find that the urge dissolves on its own, revealing that the emergency was nothing more than a ghost of the ego. This technique is a radical form of energy conservation. We burn out because we react to every spark of anxiety as if it were a fire that must be extinguished immediately. The wait-and-see approach allows you to sit by the spark and watch it go out. You realize that you don't have to do anything to achieve tranquility. You only have to stop doing the things that disrupt it. Tomorrow, when the impulse to overwork or overcommit arises, you will meet it with this same delay. You will grant yourself the luxury of time, choosing to respond with reason rather than react with habit. This is how you maintain the fortress walls, by refusing to open the gate for every passing whim. As you sink into the final depths of sleep, feel the strength that comes from this self-mastery. You are no longer a leaf blown by the wind of your own impulses. You are a steady, centered observer who knows that the most productive thing you can do right now is to remain still. The world's demands can wait. Your own anxieties can wait. The morning can wait. You have reclaimed the power of the pause, and in that pause, you have found your freedom. The 4-hour path is finished. Every brick of the fortress is in place. Every boundary is forged, and the silence is absolute. You have moved from the infinite scroll to the infinite stillness. You are home. As you rest in the final, quietest chamber of your mind, you arrive at the realization that the walls of your inner citadel are not separate from the world outside, but are built from the same ancient materials. This is the perspective of ecological Stoicism. It is the understanding that your stress, your deadlines, and your professional anxieties are entirely human constructs, fragile structures of thought that have no counterpart in the natural world. When you connect with the reality of nature, you realize that the universe is not stressed. The mountains are not hurried, the oceans are not behind schedule, and the stars do not feel the need to be productive. By aligning yourself with this greater ecology, you find that your burnout is not a fundamental truth, but a temporary misunderstanding of your own nature. The Stoics practiced the view from above to remind themselves that they were part of a vast biological whole. When you are trapped in a cycle of burnout, your world becomes very small, consisting only of screens, offices, and to-do lists. You begin to believe that the economy is the primary reality. But ecological Stoicism reminds you that you are, first and foremost, an animal living on a planet. Your biological needs, for sunlight, for movement, for silence, and for sleep, are more real than your job description. When you look at a tree or a stone, you see a being that exists in perfect accordance with nature, without needing to achieve anything. You are made of the same atoms, governed by the same laws, and entitled to the same fundamental peace. Connecting with nature acts as a radical solvent for human-made stress. Imagine the immense age of the earth and the slow, rhythmic cycles of the seasons. In the timeline of a forest, your urgent email is less than a blink of an eye. In the scale of the atmosphere, your career trajectory is an invisible wisp of smoke. This is not meant to make you feel insignificant, but to make you feel free. If your stress is a human construct, then you have the power to deconstruct it. You can choose to step out of the manufactured reality of the office and back into the primary reality of the cosmos. You can realize that the universe is already perfect, and it does not need your productivity to keep spinning. This perspective shift is the final healing balm for your nervous system. You are resting tonight, not just as a person who is off the clock, but as a biological being returning to its natural state of equilibrium. You are shedding the artificial layers of the modern world, the notifications, the metrics, and the status games, and returning to the simplicity of breath and bone. You are reclaiming your place in the ecology of the world, where rest is not a luxury, but a vital, rhythmic necessity. You are no longer fighting the day. You are inhabiting the night, just as every other living creature has done for millions of years. As you sink into the final surrender of sleep, feel the ground of reality beneath you. You are part of a system that is vast, ancient, and profoundly stable. The noise of your life is just a temporary weather pattern, but your soul is the bedrock. You have moved from the infinite scroll to the infinite earth. You have found the silence of the sage by realizing that the universe itself is the ultimate sage. Every burden you have been carrying is a weight you were never meant to bear, and tonight you are letting the earth hold it for you. The 4-hour path is finished. The fortress is secure. The boundaries are forged. The ego is silenced, and you are finally home in the heart of nature. You are whole. You are enough, and you are at peace. I will go silent now. The work of healing is done. Sleep in the quiet dignity of your own nature, and wake as a citizen of the world who knows the true scale of things. Good night.